I, Lin Feng, am an upright man. I'm truly here to join the army. Lin Feng looked at the old man before him with a mix of disdain and innocence. At 19, he was full of patriotic fervor to enlist, but as soon as he entered the door, this old man had set his sights on him. I see that you are clever and handsome. My department is also within the military, a special unit that not only demands high intelligence, but also places great emphasis on appearance. It is one of the key national departments. The bureau chief looked at Lin Feng with a smile and continued his coaxing. Stop your nonsense. Do you really think I don't know you're from the Strategic Deception Bureau? Lin Feng immediately retorted. Everyone knew Zhang Xiaozong, the chief of the Strategic Deception Bureau. He had once fooled the Americans into dismantling their F-22 fighter production line just by words. Seeing his identity exposed, the bureau chief was not embarrassed and continued, let me tell you, in my life I have mentored only 2 people and each one has achieved great things. My senior apprentice has mastered the art of military command, decisive and resolute. He will surely become an outstanding military strategist, and he has been taken by the military headquarters. The second disciple, though a woman, is extremely accomplished in scientific research. She will definitely contribute to China's technological advancement and has entered the Chinese Academy of Sciences. As the bureau chief spoke with pride, Lin Feng immediately said, in the end they all ran off with others. The bureau chief was speechless. After a moment's thought, he said, forget it. I won't force anyone. My Strategic Deception Bureau is full of beautiful women with high salaries and benefits. I'm not worried about finding people. Hearing this, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He didn't care much about beautiful women, but he was very sensitive about money. Although he was filled with patriotic passion, it was a peaceful era with no war. Joining the Strategic Deception Bureau to serve the country was also a way. Moreover, there's no reason to argue with money. Seeing Lin Feng's interest, the bureau chief squinted and prepared to turn around. As expected, Lin Feng immediately said, as a soldier, one must have principles and the will to resist temptation. So, you need to pay more, Lin Feng said. The bureau chief paused. Although he was not a dull person, his position meant that basically no one dared to speak to him like that. But deep down, the bureau chief knew he hadn't misjudged the person. The Strategic Deception Bureau didn't need passion or physique. What it needed was a flexible and adaptable mind. Now that his tricks as bureau chief had been seen through, he urgently needed someone to step up and serve the nation. He smiled, tossed a token, and said, take this to the logistics department. After leaving the bureau chief, Lin Feng found the logistics staff. The staff member was startled upon seeing Lin Feng's token, then smiled and handed him a paper, gesturing for him to sign first. While signing, Lin Feng asked, is there any problem? No, the staff shook his head. Lin Feng grew even more nervous and asked, is there some big issue with the Strategic Deception Bureau? Of course not. The staff shook his head again and said, the Strategic Deception Bureau is not an official department. It mainly handles our country's information dissemination channels. If it happens to be known by the enemy, even better. The staff explained in great detail, and Lin Feng took it all to heart. If you have any questions, you can come to me for consultation. The staff said, why should I come all the way here? I can just ask someone from our bureau. Lin Feng smiled. The staff burst out laughing as if he couldn't hold it in anymore and asked, do you know how many people are in the Strategic Deception Bureau? Lin Feng remembered the bureau chief's words about beautiful women everywhere and said, at least 200 or so. You are right about the number 2, but not that number. The staff held up 2 fingers. 2,000. Lower. 20. Lin Feng's face changed. He thought the great Strategic Deception Bureau has so few people. Wrong. The staff's smile grew even brighter. Not 20. It can't be 2. Damn, really just 2. Lin Feng saw the staff nod and his face darkened. Damn, that old man really knows how to fool people. I, Lin Feng, am indeed too young. Lin Feng tried to snatch back the paper in regret, but the staff was quicker and snatched it away, saying, sorry, once the name is signed, it's settled. The military is no joke. Director Zhang has a hard time, and the pay is really good. Who believes that? Lin Feng said. Not a single word he says can be taken seriously. While speaking, Lin Feng was thinking about how to escape from this trap. At that moment, a ding sounded in his mind. Ding. Detected a new recruit of the Strategic Deception Bureau. Obtained the Strategic Deception Technology System. What is this? Ding. Received newbie gift pack 1 space-based weapon blueprint. Space-based weapon. A blueprint flashed through Lin Feng's mind, and his eyes became as bright as a light bulb. Holy crap. A system. Awesome. Of course, Lin Feng knew what a space-based weapon was. Given the current level of technology, such a weapon only existed in sci-fi movies. Moreover, China was currently under technological blockade by the United States, making many technological fields difficult to advance. So even though Lin Feng was cool-headed, he was now trembling with excitement. Looking at the system again, there were countless items. Super Aircraft Carrier, Level 2, 0 points. Super Battleship, Level 2, 0 points. As for the rest, many were still locked. What does Level 2 mean? Lin Feng pondered for a moment. His mind worked quickly. This, level 2, should refer to the weapons level. That is, there might be even higher levels. The more Lin Feng thought, the more excited he became. He couldn't wait to run back to the dormitory to carefully verify the contents of the blueprint. He knew very well that if this was true, the future of China would be a bombshell. While Lin Feng was lost in thought, the staff member waved a hand in front of him and said, "Lin Feng, are you okay?" "I'm fine." Lin Feng snapped back to reality, picked up the token marked 002, and said excitedly, "Talk later." That night, Lin Feng looked at the piles of blueprints in front of him, his face showing ecstasy. He took out his phone and directly called the bureau chief, asking, "Old man, do you know how to contact the research department?" "Who is this?" "Oh, I remember now. What old man? You should call me teacher." The bureau chief on the other end scowled and asked, "What do you want with the research department?" Your senior apprentice sister is there. Go find her directly," the bureau chief said while hanging up. "I'm about to give an interview. Talk later." "Damn it, can't you be more patient, old man? I have a space-based weapon in my hands." The bureau chief just hung up, completely ignoring what Lin Feng said. But after taking 2 steps, he suddenly turned around and said, "This kid has potential. He's already starting to bluff about space-based weapons." "Space-based weapons? Hey, that's a good idea. Today when I go on stage, I'll tell the media that our country is already preparing to research space-based weapons. Anyway, no one will believe it." Lin Feng directly abandoned this unreliable leader, thinking that Director Zhu was just all talk and definitely didn't understand technology. He accessed the internal network to check the map of the Eastern Theater Command, found the map of the research department, and directly took the blueprints over there. He found the research department building without any trouble, and the guard soldier also stopped him without any trouble. "What's your business?" "I'm from the Zhanhu Bureau." Lin Feng took out his identity token, and then, "Oi, I wanna..." Lin Feng thought for a moment, reasoning that even Director Zhu didn't believe in space-based weapons, so these nameless soldiers would believe it even less. He pondered, and then said, "I heard my senior sister is inside. I'm looking for her." "Oh, you mean Dr. Qin? Wait, let me ask her if she'll see you." The guard soldier said this and made a call inside. Inside the research department building, the atmosphere was heavy. 6 months ago, the United States had imposed a technological blockade on China, making many high-end technology fields impossible to proceed. It must be understood that in today's global economy, technology is inseparable. If this continues, the future of China's technology sector is very worrying. Because your opponent is growing stronger. Especially, news had just come out that the United States had made new breakthroughs in controllable nuclear fusion, aerospace, and so on. Under such circumstances, all the pressure fell on the research department. If China continued like this, there was a danger of falling behind the world's progress. Qin Ru sat at her desk with a worried expression. She had just joined not long ago, but due to her outstanding talent, she was immediately tasked with work related to intercontinental missiles. She stared at the dense blueprints before her, completely immersed in her thoughts, until she was roused by a knock on the door. Somewhat displeased, Qin Ru glanced toward the door. The messenger, knowing her temperament, scientists generally hate being interrupted, quickly said, "Dr. Qin, your junior apprentice brother is outside looking for you. Would you like to see him or not?" Junior apprentice brother? Qin Ru was taken aback. She thought for a moment, but couldn't recall any such junior apprentice brother, and directly said, "No." "All right." The messenger was about to leave when he heard Qin Ru lift her head and ask, "Is he from the Zhanhu Bureau?" "Yes, it is." The messenger turned back. Hearing this, Qin Ru immediately said, "Bring him in." She had heard Director Zhu mention a few days ago that the Zhanhu Bureau was recruiting new talent and had already found a promising candidate. After all, Qin Ru had come from the Zhanhu Bureau herself, and deep down, she felt extremely grateful to Director Zhu. After a while, Lin Feng was brought in. He looked around and asked the messenger, "There's no problem with all this, right?" "You're from the Zhanhu Bureau. All of this is on a need-to-know basis," the messenger replied. "The Zhanhu Bureau, is that awesome?" Lin Feng asked in surprise. But the messenger poured cold water on his enthusiasm. "If you don't even know, how can you fool people?" Lin Feng had a sudden epiphany and said, "Makes sense, huh?" The messenger initially thought he had gone too far, but seeing Lin Feng's expression, he couldn't help but feel a growing fondness for him. He led Lin Feng to the door and said, "Dr. Qin is right inside." "All right, thanks, big brother," Lin Feng said heartily. The messenger took 2 steps, then turned back and said, "Be careful when you talk to her." "Careful." Before Lin Feng could react, the messenger had already left. He had no choice but to turn around and walk into the office where he saw his senior sister Qin Ru. At first glance, Lin Feng was stunned. He had thought that as a scientist and a disciple of that old man Director Zhu, Qin Ru wouldn't be much to look at. But Qin Ru was an absolute beauty with curves in all the right places. Now Lin Feng believed Director just words. The Zhanhu Bureau was truly full of stunning women. Well, one Qin Ru was worth a whole crowd of beauties. Lin Feng's mood improved greatly at the sight of her, and he smiled and said, "Hello, senior sister." Qin Ru acted as if she hadn't heard. Lin Feng didn't mind. He walked and looked around and said, "Sister, your place is really nice." unlike the Zhanhu Bureau office, which is run down. It was only then that Qin looked up and appraised her junior apprentice brother whom she had never met before. However, at first glance, she didn't particularly like Lin Feng. Although Lin Feng was handsome, his personality was clearly not her type. In comparison, Qin preferred someone down-to-earth and practical. This is not the Zhanhu Bureau. Nothing you see here can be leaked outside. This is absolute confidentiality. Qin said very seriously. I know. Lin Feng said nonchalantly. Did the teacher send you to find me, eh? Qin asked. No, I have something I wanted you to take a look at. Lin Feng now understood why Qin couldn't stay in the Zhanhu Bureau. Someone this quiet and serious would never fit in there. As he spoke, Lin Feng placed the blueprints on her desk, but Qin said, leave it there. They'll look at it when I have time. She figured it probably wasn't anything important. A researcher naturally prioritizes their own technical work. Qin was that type of person, she wasn't good at talking. Back then, because she was clever, Director Zhu took notice of her and brought her into the Zhanhu Bureau. Later, she was transferred to the research department. Actually, it wasn't Qin who left on her own. Director Zhu recommended her. Hearing this, Lin Feng wasn't annoyed. He had a general idea of Qin's personality. He thought for a moment and said, actually, the old man asked me to bring this over. The teacher said so. Upon hearing this, Qin indeed put down her pen. Deep down, she placed great importance on Director Zhu's requests. But Lin Feng's expression suddenly turned to surprise, not because of Qin's action, but because the system chimed. Ding. Successfully tricked. Qin group leader level earned 1,000 points. Lin Feng was dumbfounded. What was this? After a brief shock, he came to his senses and then suddenly understood. Damn, so that's how points work. But before Lin Feng could analyze the system, Qin was staring at the blueprint with an increasingly entranced look. It was an extremely intricate layout of details, equipment, and mechanical blueprints. Suddenly, she slammed the table and stood up, her eyes scanning Lin Feng like a hawk. In the next second, under Lin Feng's gaze, she directly pressed the alarm switch on the desk. At the same time, all alarms in the research department began to beep. Senior sister, what are you doing? At that moment, Lin Feng was completely bewildered. What was this woman doing? Can't we just talk it out? Why the sudden alarm? For a moment, the entire research department fell into chaos. The moment Qin pressed it, soldiers armed with rifles rushed in and surrounded the place. What happened? I don't know. An external invasion. The staff inside were also panicking, as everyone working here understood the extreme level of confidentiality involved. What's going on, Dr. Qin? The leader, Captain Gao, scanned Lin Feng, a stranger, the moment he entered. If he sensed any threat from Lin Feng toward Qin, Captain Gao would have subdued him in the next second. Seal all entrances to the research facility. No one is allowed to leave. Qin continued. Also, everyone who has been in contact with. She glanced at Lin Feng. Lin Feng understood. This woman, despite her poor verbal skills, had a sharp mind, having come from the Bureau of Strategic Deception. She must have discerned the implications of the blueprints and immediately thought to contain the information. After all, a space-based weapon was no joke. Lin Feng, he said. Detain everyone who has been in contact with Lin Feng, Qin ordered. Captain Gao glanced at Lin Feng with some confusion, but could see he posed no threat. He said bitterly, Dr. Qin, your clearance isn't sufficient. They'll take full responsibility for any consequences. Qin declared resolutely. Yes, ma'am. Captain Gao replied, still puzzled, but quickly complied. As he turned to leave the room, he noticed a detail. Qin's hand clutching the blueprints was trembling violently. This only deepened Captain Gao's curiosity. Qin was known for her composure. What could have shaken her so profoundly? And who was this Lin Feng? No sooner had Captain Gao left than Qin asked, where did this come from? Impressive, senior sister, you recognized it as a space-based weapon. Lin Feng looked at her with newfound respect. To his surprise, Qin froze and said, what did you say? A space-based weapon? She couldn't actually identify the blueprints as a space-based weapon, but as a missile researcher, she recognized a propulsion system far more advanced than anything domestically available. Even in the United States, such an advanced propulsion system was impossible to develop. This alone was enough for Qin to sever all potential leaks. Lin Feng realized she hadn't recognized it. He didn't explain, simply saying, what if I told you I found it on the street? Would you believe me? Qin rolled her eyes and reached for the phone to call the director. Lin Feng immediately stopped her, saying, don't call. I lied earlier. The old man didn't send me with those blueprints. Call him, teacher. Qin corrected him earnestly, even now, before asking. Then how did you get them? She wasn't foolish. If the director had obtained such a thing, he would have sent it straight to the highest research authorities. All right. Lin Feng exhaled, his gaze turning sincere as he spoke rapidly. Actually, I'm a scientific genius. My IQ has been over 220 since childhood, but outsiders misunderstand me. Qin twirled a pen as she listened. Her first impression was that it sounded like a novel. Lin Feng was boasting about how brilliant he was in his studies. Senior sister, if you don't believe me, you can test me, Lin Feng said. Qin was waiting for that moment. Claims were just empty talk. She immediately asked, explain this propulsion system. It's simple. An anti-gravity propulsion system. By breaking the equilibrium between conventional magnetic force and gravity, using a virtual energy system, it can be achieved. The principle of this system is... Lin Feng spoke at length. Qin Ru understood some of it, but most was beyond her. That was expected. What Lin Feng was describing were the detailed explanations annotated in the blueprints. Knowledge only he possessed. Yet hearing this, Qin Ru was convinced. She stared at him in disbelief. Could the Bureau of Strategic Deception really have recruited another scientific genius? No. Compared to someone with an IQ over 220, how could she call herself a genius? As Qin Ru pondered, a rapid series of chimes sounded in Lin Feng's mind. Ding. Successfully deceived, Qin Ru group leader level. Reward 10000 deception points. 10,000. Lin Feng paused, quickly grasping the implication. The more significant the deception, the more points he seemed to earn. With that thought, Lin Feng's expression turned peculiar as he muttered to himself, "How did an upright person like me end up awakening such a system?" Footsteps thudded. After the alarm, the head of the research department, Li Chongshan, rushed in, wiping sweat as he asked, "Qin Ru, what's going on? Do you know what a level 1 alert means?" As he spoke, Li Chongshan sized up Lin Feng, while Qin Ru respectfully handed him the blueprints. "What's this?" Li Chongshan continued to study Lin Feng. This kid was quite handsome, reminded him of himself in his youth. Thinking this, Li Chongshan glanced at the blueprints. He might have ignored them, but the first look nearly made him collapse. Qin Ru quickly steadied him as he wobbled, adjusting his glasses and wiping sweat, saying, "It's nothing. Qin Ru swallowed hard, looking at Lin Feng in astonishment. Her expertise was far less than Li Chongshan's, and so was her experience. Could this truly be the design for a space-based weapon? Where did this come from? Li Chongshan never imagined that as head of the research department, he would one day stammer. Qin Ru pointed at Lin Feng. Li Chongshan turned to him as Qin Ru said slowly, "Lin Feng, my junior brother and newcomer to the Bureau of Strategic Deception, a genius, with an IQ of 220. Director, can you reveal a bit more about the space-based weapon?" the host pressed on a TV program. The director smiled slightly and said, "I've said all I can. What I shouldn't say I truly can't. But I can tell you seriously, the space-based weapon is no empty talk." The host, sensing he could get nothing more, stood up and said, "Well, time is running short, and the show is nearing its end." After the show, the director took out his phone and discovered that, having silenced and turned off the vibration during the broadcast, he had 36 missed calls. Among them, 16 were from Qin Ru. That girl must be missing her teacher. I knew she was soft-hearted despite her tough exterior. What does Li Chongshan, that old man, want from me? He called 20 times. Are we that close? The director decided to call Li Chongshan back first. "Hey, old Li, what do you want? Where the hell have you been? Get over here now and tell me the truth about Lin Feng's background." Li Chongshan's voice was urgent, breathless. He hung up immediately after speaking. The director's face darkened instantly. Damn it. Had the new recruit he just brought in already caused trouble on his first day? The next moment, a curse slipped out. That little bastard. Cursing under his breath, the director hurried toward the research institute. In the office, Li Chongshan looked at Lin Feng with the gaze one reserves for an idol. Having been a technician himself in the past, he held deep respect for those skilled in technical fields. He even treated them differently. For instance, he harbored a strong dislike for the old director, a man of mere words. Thus, upon learning that Lin Feng belonged to the Strategic Deception Bureau, he was utterly astonished. He resolved to recruit Lin Feng at the earliest opportunity. "Minister Li, you should understand that geniuses are often misunderstood. My journey has been fraught with disdain." Lin Feng sighed. "Yes, indeed." Li Chongshan nodded vigorously like a chick pecking at grain and said sheepishly, "Could you first tell me what this blueprint is?" Qin Ru was astonished. Li Chongshan was considered the encyclopedia of the East China Research Department, yet even he could not identify it. Sensing her gaze, Li Chongshan felt no embarrassment. He could not decipher it, but he could discern its formidable structures and systems. Thus, he looked at Lin Feng with eager anticipation. Lin Feng glanced at him, a hint of disappointment in his eyes. For as he was spinning his tail, the system chimed incessantly. Ding. Successfully deceived Li Chongshan, academician level. Reward 30,000 points. Ding. Successfully deceived Qin Ru, team leader level. Reward 100 points. Exhausted. What? Lin Feng was taken aback. Exhausted. Did this mean he had drained Qin Ru dry? The thought amused him. He had extracted a total of 29,000 points from Qin Ru, yet it paled in comparison to a single deception of Li Chongshan. Thus the truth was clear: the more formidable the person, the greater their potential points. Lin Feng. Li Chongshan called out again. Snapping back to reality, Lin Feng said slowly, "This is a blueprint for an orbital weapon." "Oh, an orbital weapon, no wonder I couldn't recognize." Li Chongshan feigned sudden enlightenment, then sprang up like a startled beast, exclaiming, "What did you say?" I said an orbital weapon." Startled, Lin Feng watched as Li Chongshan pulled out a communicator and said, "Is this the State Security Bureau?" "I am Li Chongshan." I have an urgent matter to report. By the time the director arrived, the research department was densely surrounded by soldiers. As the director approached, soldiers immediately raised their guns to block him. What's this? The director pulled out his ID to prove his identity. But the soldier merely glanced at it and said, "Director, I'm sorry, but you cannot enter now." Only then did the director notice the soldier's distinctive feature, a red moon emblem on his chest. This emblem signified the Special Forces of the National Security Protection Bureau. The director grew even more curious. This department was only deployed in extremely special circumstances. He thought for a moment and asked, "What exactly is happening inside?" "I'm sorry," the soldier replied. "Please leave immediately." The tone was utterly unyielding. The director was undoubtedly a figure of high rank, at least a major general with many connections. Yet now he couldn't even get past this point. Seeing that the soldier refused to communicate, the director had no choice but to call Li Chongshan. After a while of sweating, Li Chongshan emerged. "What's going on, old Li?" the director asked. "You're asking me?" Li Chongshan looked at him bewildered. "Who else would I ask?" The director also looked at Li Chongshan, equally confused. Was old Li losing his mind? It was he who had called the director here. Then it dawned on him. He had come for Lin Feng. Could it be? He quickly said, "Lin Feng." Li Chongshan nodded. In that moment, the director was both shocked and alarmed. If it involved Lin Feng, it likely had to do with his background. Yet he had investigated Lin Feng. His record was clean, and his forebears were military personnel with a solid family history. And now the State Security Bureau had been mobilized. After a moment of deliberation, the director said with utmost seriousness, "This is entirely my fault. I will take full responsibility." He looked up to find Li Chongshan staring at him intently. "I'm serious," the director insisted. To his surprise, Li Chongshan replied with equal gravity, "Are you out of your mind?" When the director finally entered the research department, he found it completely under the control of the State Security Bureau. Even the director had to surrender all his belongings upon entry. "What did he discover that warrants this?" he asked while undergoing security screening. "You'll know once you're inside," Li Chongshan said mysteriously. He longed to explain, but the place was teeming with people. If the orbital weapon was confirmed, it would become a top-tier national secret. Such a level of secrecy was on par with the atomic bomb project. After passing the security check, the director entered and saw the new recruit he had just coaxed into the Strategic Deception Bureau. He approached, and Qinru immediately stood up saying, "Teacher." The director nodded pompously, then glanced at Lin Feng, who was looking at him with a knowing smile. "What's going on?" the director asked. Lin Feng grinned, looking at the director with anticipation. He wondered how many points someone of the director's caliber was worth. "Simply put, as you know, a genius like me with an IQ of 220 often faces disdain." Lin Feng began looking at the director. The director nodded, his eyes fixed on Lin Feng, as if to say, "Go on. Keep spinning your tail." Lin Feng coughed dryly, realizing that this old man was different, hard to deceive. "So what exactly is that blueprint?" the director asked. Before Lin Feng could answer, several people entered from outside. Li Chongshan turned and immediately stood at attention like a schoolboy barely daring to breathe. Only then did the director see an elderly man walk in. After a moment of stunned recognition, even the director swallowed hard, aware of the man's identity. Yang, a titan in the field of Chinese aerospace. The founder of the Shenzhou series, the initiator of the space station, and the chief engineer of the lunar exploration program. A figure of such caliber was classified at this level. Today he had appeared. "Academician Yang, what brings you here?" The director immediately saluted in respect. Yang An's eyes swept over Li Chongshan, who like an obedient pupil respectfully handed the blueprint to this titan of his field. Yang took the blueprint and glanced at it 3 times. The first time his eyes narrowed. The second time they flew wide open. The third time his body trembled violently. "Academician Yang." The director hurried forward to support him, only to hear Yang An's ecstatic trembling voice. It's an orbital weapon. An orbital weapon. Space-based weapons." The director felt as though struck by lightning. What did this weapon signify? A space-based weapon was an ultra-advanced technology that only existed in science fiction films and novels. The concept of a space-based weapon was the ability to deliver the most precise strikes against any location on the ground from space. At present, no nation in the world could achieve this. Wait. The director suddenly snapped back to reality. Lin Feng had mentioned the word space-based weapon to him before. While the director was startled, Li Chongshan whispered a few words to Yang. He said he was from 220. As Li Chongshan prepared to explain, Lin Feng for once blushed. This man had made extraordinary contributions to China, and though Lin Feng was thick-skinned, he felt guilty deceiving someone like him. Unexpectedly, Yang simply raised his hand to stop Li Chongshan. He stared at Lin Feng, then stood ramrod straight and made a salute. At that moment, Lin Feng was flustered. He quickly returned the salute and said, "Elder Yang, you're overwhelming me. Do you know what this blueprint means for our China?" Yang asked. Before Lin Feng could answer, Yang continued, "If it can be successfully realized, then China will have no rival in the space domain." A single stone stirred 1,000 ripples. Li Chongshan, the director, and Qinru were all gasping with excitement. Yang An's words were an affirmation. Lin Feng merely smiled faintly. Space-based weapons seemed impressive, but in the system, they probably weren't much. If they got this excited over this little thing, what would happen if he took out something else later? Would they end up in the hospital? As his words fell, a person from the National Security Bureau walked in and handed Yang An a communicator. Yang An nodded to Lin Feng before heading out, presumably to report to his superiors. After all, Yang An had come to confirm this information. As soon as Yang An left, the director approached Lin Feng and whispered, "You little bastard, it was really a space-based weapon. Why didn't you say so earlier?" "I did say it, you just didn't listen." "You. Wait, I think I missed something." The director suddenly realized. Just then, 3 agents from the National Security Bureau hurried in. Under everyone's curious gaze, the 3 burly men surrounded the director. Lin Feng and the others were baffled. "You are suspected of leaking national security information. You need to come with us," the lead agent said. The director's mouth twitched as he remembered. He had just said on the program that the country was preparing to research space-based weapons. "You cannot speak now until we complete our investigation," the lead agent said, and the other 2 moved in. Lin Feng was stunned, wondering what the director had done, but he saw the director frantically signaling him with his eyes as he was taken away. Lin Feng understood the meaning clearly. "Save me." "I don't know what he did either. You cannot leave the military district now, or you can only move within it. These 2 agents will guard you. I hope you understand. I need to return to Yinjing immediately for a top-level meeting before a final decision can be made. Can I take this blueprint?" Yang An spoke with great courtesy, nothing like a highly esteemed senior. Of course, Lin Feng nodded. Yang An saluted again, then sealed the blueprint in a package, affixed a seal, and left under the escort of a team of agents. After they left, Lin Feng asked Li Chongshan, "Minister Li, what exactly did our director do?" "Oh." Li Chongshan snapped out of it, and immediately said, "Don't call me Minister Li. Just call me Xiao Li, or my name." "You are a senior," Lin Feng said. Li Chongshan wiped his sweat and begged him not to say that. It wasn't that Li Chongshan was being subservient. He knew that from this moment on, Lin Feng's status had far surpassed his own. After a few exchanges, Lin Feng gave up arguing and returned to the matter of the director. "I don't know either," Li Chongshan said, equally puzzled. Meanwhile, the TV station that had just interviewed the director was quietly surrounded by National Security Bureau agents, and all passers-by were recorded. The station's director was now having tea at the National Security Bureau. The reason was, the segment of the interview with the director had already been broadcast. At the National Security Bureau, not only the station director, but also the old director himself was having tea. "I really don't know," the director said, his head throbbing. "How could you not know? Don't shine that light on me. That trick won't work. Comrade Zhang, do you know the consequences of leaking state secrets?" "Nonsense, I've been in this line of work. Of course I know." "If you know, why did you leak it?" "I didn't know that kid had a space-based weapon. He's from your Strategic Deception Bureau. How could you not know?" "He did mention it, but I..." The director started, but saw the agent's gaze turn hostile. The director swallowed hard, realizing he couldn't clear his name, even if he jumped into the Yellow River. He didn't blame Lin Feng, he was just thinking about how to salvage the situation. Honestly, his own life was expendable. But news of the space-based weapon absolutely could not leak out. Unable to defend himself, he simply said, "I want to see Lin Feng." While the director was being interrogated to the point of exhaustion, Lin Feng was lounging on the sofa, legs crossed, drinking want milk, and watching the news of the director's interview. When he heard the director say, "Our country is already preparing to research space-based weapons," Lin Feng couldn't help but laugh. The head of the Strategic Deception Bureau had actually spilled the truth. No wonder he was invited for tea by the National Security Bureau. "You're still laughing. Think of a way to save teacher." Qin Ru's face darkened when she saw the news. She was frantic. Though she had only studied under the director for a short time, she knew his character well. He would never betray the country. Lin Feng finally grew serious, realizing this couldn't be delayed. If the director was actually taken away, the Strategic Deception Bureau would be left with only him. He thought for a moment and said to the agents behind him, "Tell your highest authority, I want to see the director." Half an hour later, Lin Feng, escorted by 2 agents, entered the room where the director was detained. "Still laughing, you little brat." The director wanted to slam the table when he saw Lin Feng, but he dared not move under the agent's gaze. Lin Feng signaled the 2 agents to leave. But the agents were reluctant, afraid the director might harm Lin Feng. In the end, Lin Feng came up with an idea: have the agents cuff and shackle the director before they agreed to leave. "Turn off the surveillance cameras too," Lin Feng added. Once he confirmed the cameras were off, the director raised his cuffed hands and said, "Thanks a lot." Lin Feng smiled bitterly. "Chief, I didn't do anything. The leak was your own loose lips." The director was about to get angry, but then he thought it over and found some truth in it. Still, he felt a bit frustrated. But as he thought, he suddenly laughed. "What are you laughing at?" "Gone mad from confinement," Lin Feng said. "Our country has obtained a space-based weapon. Of course I'm happy. And it came from my Strategic Deception Bureau," the director said with pride. Lin Feng was speechless, but deeply moved. Many of the older generation truly had a strong sense of patriotism. "Let's think about how to get you out of here," Lin Feng said. The director turned serious. "Explain it to them clearly, and see what they say first. Lin Feng nodded thought for a moment and said, should I leave the Strategic Deception Bureau afterward? The director looked up. Nonsense. Though the director didn't know how Lin Feng had obtained the space-based weapon blueprint, it was certain that Lin Feng could no longer stay in the Strategic Deception Bureau after this. What if I don't want to leave? Lin Feng said. Why? The director asked, puzzled. The current Strategic Deception Bureau couldn't accommodate a super heavyweight like Lin Feng. Because I'm nostalgic. You were the one who discovered me. Lin Feng said earnestly. Bullshit. You're full of cunning tricks. You think I'd believe that? The director said. Lin Feng smiled bitterly, realizing the director was indeed hard to fool. He was too seasoned. I'm serious. Lin Feng thought for a moment and said, and I have a reason I absolutely must stay. Knowing he couldn't deceive him, Lin Feng decided to be a bit honest. It was only after joining the Strategic Deception Bureau that he had obtained the system. Who knew if the system would disappear if he left? The director chuckled. I'd have no problem with it. I already assessed you when you joined, but the higher-ups definitely won't agree. The Strategic Deception Bureau deals with the media. It's too high profile. You mean if I convince the higher-ups you'll agree? Lin Feng smiled. The director squinted. Looks like you've already figured out how to bluff your way through. How can you say that, elder? Lin Feng straightened his collar. In this world, only sincerity can move people. With that, Lin Feng got up and left, leaving the director staring disdainfully at his retreating figure. Only when Lin Feng had completely disappeared did a smile gradually spread across the director's face. He knew that Lin Feng must have many secrets. But that didn't matter. He could feel that Lin Feng's heart belonged to the nation. In Yinjing, a top-level conference spanning the realms of science and politics was underway. The room was sparsely populated with only 8 individuals present. Yet the identities of these 8 were formidable beyond measure. Among them were Yang and Chun Haidong, the Supreme Commander of the National Security Bureau. I have confirmed the authenticity of this blueprint. Yang concluded his report and took his seat. What about the background of this person? A man spoke. He was Li Guoqing, a high-ranking military official. As he spoke, he fixed his gaze on Chun Haidong, but Chun Haidong retorted directly, everything concerning Lin Feng is now classified as top secret, accessible only to the one. Chun Haidong, what do you mean? The man was displeased. As the atmosphere grew tense, Yang slammed the table and said impatiently, if you want to play your games, go back and do it. Stop bickering here in front of me. At these words, both men immediately backed down. Li Guoqing apologized. Elder Yang, I didn't mean that. The atmosphere eased once more. Now we need to discuss the nature and plan of this project, Yang declared. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Guoqing raised his hand, saying, my military region is fully committed to supporting this project. The National Economic Zone also agrees. One by one, others raised their hands in agreement. Finally, Yang asked, then what about the project's name and classification? This stumped everyone. It was a difficult matter to decide. As discussions grew heated, the door suddenly burst open. Everyone turned to look, wondering who would dare intrude. They saw a special agent in a black military uniform bearing a black dragon emblem on his chest. In an instant, all rose to their feet. The agent entered and handed a document to Yang saying his orders. Everyone swallowed hard. This matter had actually reached him. Yang quickly opened the sealed document and announced this project is classified as SS level. At these words, everyone gasped. This was the second SS level project in China. Project codename Breakthrough. Breakthrough? Breaking through whose blockade? Naturally, the technological stranglehold of the United States across the Pacific. Chun Haidong. Yang called out again. Chun Haidong was startled. He took the information from Yang and saw it written Lin Feng is appointed as the chief director of the Breakthrough Project, his identity classified as top secret, effective immediately added to the national white list. Chun Haidong was not surprised by the first line, but the latter part made him completely unsettled. What did the national white list signify? If any foreign power dared to harm this person, China would spare no effort and risk all-out war regardless of the cost. This list typically held only one name per era. Now there were 2. Please wait a moment longer, the agent said to Lin Feng, looking troubled. No rush. Listen, my story is really fascinating. Lin Feng pulled the 2 agents aside, chattering endlessly. The 2 agents sighed. Agents of this caliber were usually taciturn and forbidden from speaking much. But Lin Feng was overly familiar, starting his tale practically from the moment of conception. Ding! Successfully fooled passerby agents rewarded 1,000 points. Lin Feng was speechless. The system was convenient, but rather impolite. What did it mean by passerby agents? At least give them a name. However, Lin Feng had confirmed one thing: this system valued status highly. The higher the status, the more points he earned. This made Lin Feng even more curious. How many points could he get by fooling the bureau chief? That old man's status was neither high nor low, so probably not many. But he still wanted to know. As Lin Feng pondered, an agent walked in from outside and said, the director wants to see you. Hearing this, Lin Feng immediately stood up and took the phone. The other party initiated a video call. On the screen was Chun Haidong. When Chun Haidong saw Lin Feng, he was still astounded. This youth, only 19 years old, was about to take charge of an SS-level project. Hello, I'm Chun Haidong. Chun Haidong began slowly. I heard you wanted to see me. Chun Haidong was in no hurry to tell Lin Feng much, as his responsibility was Lin Feng's safety. Others would handle the rest. Bureau Chief, Lin Feng said, unfamiliar with the man's temperament. Chun Haidong chuckled but frowned, saying, I know Comrade Zhang was wronged, but he did let it slip. So are you going to kill him? Lin Feng asked. That's not necessary, but the problem must be resolved, Chun Haidong replied with a smile. Let him go and it will be resolved, Lin Feng said. I told you the situation. The old man didn't believe it at first, and after hearing my mention, he thought it was a joke. What do you propose? Let the joke continue. No one will believe it anyway, Lin Feng said. Chun Haidong pondered for a moment, then said, I'll consider it. Hearing this, Lin Feng breathed a sigh of relief, knowing the matter was nearly settled. By the way, you'll come to Yinjing tonight, Chun Haidong said. Why Yinjing? Your current status and level are different now. It's not suitable for you to stay in Donghai City. Chun Haidong continued, What if I insist on staying? Lin Feng asked. At this, Chun Haidong's eyes narrowed. You don't want to leave the Strategic Deception Bureau? Yes. Why? No reason. There must be one. The bureau chief showed me great kindness. That's not enough. No wall is impenetrable. The tighter you protect me, the deeper enemy spies will dig. How do you know there are no traitors among my protectors? Lin Feng argued. Chun Haidong frowned at this. Conversely, if you put me in the public eye in the Strategic Deception Bureau, people will only see me as a fool, the bureau chief's little apprentice. No one will pay me any attention, Lin Feng said. What if I'm unwilling to take that risk? Chun Haidong asked. Lin Feng replied, You don't have the final say in this matter either. Hearing this, Chun Haidong was not angered, but smiled, filled with admiration for Lin Feng. At 19, to possess such eloquence and boldness was truly exceptional. He said, I'll report this. Thanks, Lin Feng let out a long breath. Just then the system notified him of earning 100 points. This meant the Supreme Commander of the National Security Bureau believed him. By the way, Lin Feng added, there's one more thing. What? Can you replace the agents you sent to protect me with normal-looking ones? Why do you say that? They're all muscle-bound with arms thicker than my thighs. They're obviously trained fighters. Won't that expose my identity? Lin Feng explained. Chun Haidong paused, then chuckled, No problem. By the next day, the director had returned. He was filled with joy at the thought of going back to the Strategic Deception Bureau, only to find that he couldn't enter at all. That little rascal. Though the director knew this was standard procedure, he still felt a twinge of resentment. This bureau was his domain. He sat on the ground somewhat dejected and took out a cigarette. After a single puff, he suddenly laughed, saying, Looking at it this way, my judgment is truly sharp. I managed to pick up a treasure like this. Hep. While the director was boasting to himself, Lin Feng was meeting with Yang An. Yang An was detailing the matters concerning the breakthrough project. In the overall person in charge, Lin Feng was taken aback. Yang An looked at him and said, You are the most familiar with the details of the blueprints, so naturally, you should be the one. Elder Yang, please don't address me like that. It will overwhelm me, Lin Feng said with a bitter smile. Yang An smiled, warming up to Lin Feng, and said, Rest assured, I know you're unfamiliar with work within the system. We will assign you an assistant, and you can come to me or this department with any issues. Lin Feng glanced at it and couldn't help but twitch his mouth. The Department of State Affairs. Wasn't that the most formidable department of all? Let me think about it, Lin Feng said. Lin Feng Yang An wanted to persuade him, knowing the matter could be significant or trivial, but he was surprised to see Lin Feng smile and say, I'm just thinking about how to begin. Hearing this, Yang An let out a complete sigh of relief, only to hear Lin Feng add, So can I freely deploy personnel? Naturally, Yang An said, looking at Lin Feng expectantly. He wanted to volunteer himself as he dreamed of being part of this epic plan, yet he worried Lin Feng might think him too old. Lin Feng naturally sensed Yang An's hidden intentions, but he still said, Then he'll go back and write a proposal first. Good. Yang An nodded repeatedly. He tried to speak several times, but eventually took his leave. Lin Feng personally saw him to the door, where he spotted the director sitting on the ground looking dejected. He chuckled, Oh, my director slacking off here, are we? Shoo, the director said, getting up and giving Lin Feng a disdainful look. As they walked inside, Lin Feng moved to sit in the main seat at the desk, prompting a violent cough from the director. Fine, take it. You're so petty, Lin Feng said dismissively. Once the director sat down, Lin Feng noticed he still seemed unsettled and comforted him. I've already spoken with the higher-ups. It's fine. It doesn't matter if I'm fine or not. I'm just afraid. The director said gloomily, What if someone in the US actually believed my words? Lin Feng laughed outright upon hearing this, saying, You fooled the Americans so many times. Will they still believe you? What do you mean by that? My credibility on the international stage is quite high, you know, the director said, slightly offended. You can fool Qinru with that talk, but it's pointless with me. Isn't it because you've lost your own credibility that you want to groom a successor to keep on fooling people? Lin Feng immediately saw through the director's little scheme. The director's face flushed red, but he soon broke into a smile again. This Lin Feng was indeed a clever one, he hadn't misjudged him. By the way, the director's expression turned gossipy, and he asked in a low voice, "What did Elder Yang talk to you about just now? What are the higher-ups planning?" Lin Feng narrowed his eyes at this moment, and said, "Do you really want to hear it?" The director paused, suddenly coming to his senses. This matter was surely earth-shattering, with an extremely high level of secrecy. He'd end up having tea at the National Security Bureau again. "You little brat trying to get me in trouble again." The director grumbled as he drank a cup of tea, then said, "No, I still have to find a way to completely solve this mess. After all, I started it." Lin Feng interrupted, pointing at the cup. "What's up?" "This cup of tea is Elder Yang's." "Off." The director immediately spat it out, saying, "Tui, why didn't you say so earlier?" It wasn't disgust, but a matter of personal hygiene. He was a man with a cleanliness obsession. "You didn't ask, you just picked it up and drank," Lin Feng said with a smile. The director hurried off to who knows where, returning after a while humming a tune saying, "All washed up. Ah, refreshing." Lin Feng, however, was sitting at the table. He stopped writing, looked up, and said, "I said this cup of tea was Elder Yang's, but I didn't say he had drunk from it." The director froze, his smile solidifying the next second before he erupted in fury. The two agents outside then heard an endless torrent of curses like thunder rolling from within. Ding. Successfully deceived the director of the Strategic Deception Bureau. Reward 100,000 points. 100,000. After his initial shock, Lin Feng counted the zeros and was dumbfounded. He had talked himself hoarse, deceiving Li Chongshan for a mere 30,000 points, yet a small joke with the director netted him 100,000 points. In that instant, Lin Feng's eyes gleamed as he looked at the director, as if beholding a plump sheep. No more like a money-printing machine. Intuition told Lin Feng that the director had immense potential. "Director, spit it out. Are you free for dinner tonight?" Lin Feng asked with a beaming smile. But the director felt a chill at his smile. This kid was too cunning, he was definitely up to no good. Late into the night, Lin Feng sat at his desk deep in thought. First, he needed to clarify his next direction. The space-based weapon was just the beginning, and appetizer. Lin Feng's first priority was to amass a large number of points. Only then could he continuously acquire new super-tech weapons. But items like super aircraft carriers cost as much as 1,000,000 points each. Even if he deceived the director every day, it would be nearly impossible to gather that many. Lin Feng exhaled, twirling his pen, pondering how to solve this problem. Suddenly, his eyes caught sight of the Strategic Deception Bureau's signboard. In a flash, inspiration struck. That's it. The television station. By using the TV station to deceive others, just like the director, he would never have to worry about points. Lin Feng was overjoyed, nearly laughing out loud. In the United States, the sole superpower on the blue planet, the nation was ruthlessly harvesting the globe through finance and military might. When they saw China rising, they decisively struck, imposing a comprehensive blockade on this Eastern power in areas like economics and technology, attempting to halt China's ascent. For they knew that this nation had throughout history surpassed all others on the blue planet. This country, this people, might one day truly surpass them entirely. To this end, they established a new department called the China Group. The head of this department, Wilson, held a very high status in the U.S., reporting directly to the president. At that moment, Wilson was listening to a report on recent developments in China. Under our blockade, their chip, semiconductor, and economic sectors have all been severely impacted, especially in the technology field. Since the sanctions were implemented, their largest independent smartphone company is nearly bankrupt, and its shipments have plummeted. The team member grew more excited as he spoke. Wilson, however, asked, "And what about new technologies?" "New technologies?" The team member laughed outright at the question, saying, "We've issued a global ban. No country dares to cooperate with China now. How could they possibly innovate new technology on their own? Remember, the Easterners are good at copying, but when it comes to innovation, they're just eating our dust." Wilson couldn't help but chuckle at the remark. The words were crude, but true. He pondered for a moment before speaking. However, China indeed possesses the most complete industrial chain in the world. We cannot afford to be complacent in this regard. You see, those Easterners are far too cunning. They fooled us before with that so-called Juzwa, allowing them to successfully produce fifth-generation fighters. Upon hearing Wilson's words, the team member quickly nodded and said cautiously, "This is an area we are closely monitoring, especially this person called Juzwa." As he spoke, the team member handed Wilson a dossier. The latter took it, and upon glancing at it, his eyes twitched. "Space-based weaponry. You must be joking." Wilson said, "We thought it was impossible to." "This old man is definitely bluffing," the team member laughed. But then, noticing the seriousness in Wilson's expression, he said, "Lord Wilson, you don't actually believe it, do you? Our country is also working on a space-based weapons project, but we are only in the initial stages." Wilson said, "If China gets ahead of us?" "Impossible. China's technology is limited," the team member said. "Just in case," Wilson replied. "This matter must be investigated thoroughly." The team member was stunned upon hearing this. If the space-based weapons project was real, its classification level in China would be extremely high. How could they possibly investigate it? Wilson then said it's time to use it. The team member exclaimed in surprise, but it was our hard-earned asset. Isn't it too early to activate it? Go ahead, Wilson said, handing him a badge. The team member took the badge and took a deep breath. The badge was imprinted with a butterfly. That was also the operative's code name. What? Zhu Zhua exclaimed, almost jumping out of his seat upon hearing Lin Feng's words. I said I want to go on the show with you, Lin Feng said. You. Zhu Zhua grew anxious. Haven't you caused me enough trouble? Do you have any idea what your status is now? Zhu Zhua was frantic. Even though he didn't know the exact level of the cracking the deadlock project, he could roughly guess it. If Lin Feng showed his face, he would become a public figure. No way, Zhu Zhua said. Lin Feng smiled and took out a badge engraved with a black dragon pattern. The moment Zhu Zhua saw it, he was utterly dumbfounded. He recognized this badge. Producing it was equivalent to a military order. Are you trying to make things difficult for an old man like me? Zhu Zhua said. Relax, I've reported this to the higher-ups, and I know my limits, Lin Feng said. Lin Feng, you must understand this matter is not. The most dangerous place is the safest, Lin Feng said. Just then seeing Yang enter, Lin Feng said, I have a meeting to attend. They'll leave this to you. With that, Lin Feng left, leaving Zhu Zhua muttering about when he'd next be summoned for tea by the National Security Bureau. As Lin Feng entered the meeting room, Yang and stood up to introduce him. Among those present were the head of the Space Department and the director of the Aeronautical Technology Department. Lin Feng gave a slight nod, his demeanor calm, and said with a smile, if everyone is here, please take a seat. Yang En and the others sat down, and no one dared to act presumptuously based on seniority. After all, everyone present knew Lin Feng's status. Nevertheless, curiosity lingered in their minds. Could a 19-year-old truly be responsible for a 3-level project? Was the design for a space-based weapon really his work? Now I will read out the list. Chief Engineer of the Cracking the Deadlock Project, Lin Feng. Deputy Chief Engineer, Academician Yang En. As Lin Feng began to read, Yang En sitting beside him paused upon hearing this, then snapped to attention, almost breaking into tears. However, Yang En had weathered many storms. He quickly composed himself and prepared to listen further, only to see Lin Feng put away the paper. That's it. Yi Zhongshan, the head of the Space Department, asked in surprise. Yes, Lin Feng nodded. They'll leave the personnel matters to Deputy Chief Engineer Yang. You. The group was taken aback, exchanging glances. What was this? Usually for such a major project, the chief engineer would personally select the team. Wasn't Lin Feng just washing his hands of responsibility? Any problem with that, Elder Yang? Lin Feng asked. Yang En scanned the room and said without hesitation, no problem. I'm more familiar with the personnel. Yang An's words were also intended to explain Lin Feng's position. But the others were still not convinced. They were faced with a 3-level project. Even if Lin Feng wasn't familiar with the people, he could still discuss it with them. Before you are 5 project plans. I expect each department to complete them on time, Lin Feng continued. The others opened the documents, but found little content, mostly concerning equipment and land use. Yi Zhongshan, however, flipped to the last page and finally couldn't help but stand up. Lin Feng. Chief Lin, I have a question. Please, Lin Feng said. Are you serious about this timeline? Yi Zhongshan's tone grew heavier. Everyone turned to the last page and saw the words planned completion time for the Cracking the Deadlock project, 180 days. Instantly, the room erupted in commotion. 180 days. You must be joking. This was a space-based weapon. In their estimation, it couldn't be done in less than 3 years. Half a year was pure fantasy. I didn't make a mistake. This is the time frame, Lin Feng said. You must understand this. Yi Zhongshan's voice grew louder, but Lin Feng stood up and said, I have matters to discuss with the deputy chief engineer. You may all leave for now. Hearing this, Yi Zhongshan and the others grew even angrier. But they were helpless. Lin Feng's rank was too high. He reported directly to the top echelon. So as they left, they discussed in hushed tones. Once outside, someone finally couldn't hold back. This kid is too young. Should we ask to replace him? Exactly, others chimed in, their frustration mounting. But Yi Zhongshan remained calm. Are you sure you want to replace him? He's the one who proposed this plan. If he's replaced, will you take over? Do you understand space-based weapons? This question left everyone staring blankly at each other. Indeed, space-based weapons. None of them, or any of the countless scientific personnel in China, truly understood them. Back in the meeting room, Lin Feng could naturally guess they were discussing him, but he didn't care. Yang En, however, said, Lin Feng, isn't this timeline? Elder Yang, don't you trust me either? Lin Feng asked. Yang En paused, then recalled that Lin Feng knew every detail of the space-based weapon by heart. They'll be leaving most of the Cracking the Deadlock project's work to you from now on, Lin Feng said. You. Yang En hesitated. Was Lin Feng really going to be an absentee manager? Then Lin Feng added, I trust you, Elder Yang. Yang En didn't know how to respond. At that moment, he felt Lin Feng was a bit too lazy and arrogant. But he didn't know Lin Feng's true thoughts. Lin Feng wasn't being lazy, he genuinely didn't have the time. A flood of new weaponry was about to emerge. If he had to oversee every single project from start to finish, he simply couldn't handle it. Seeing the doubt in Yang An's eyes, Lin Feng offered no explanation. He knew that when that moment arrived, Yang An's expression would be vastly different from what it was now. Seeing the doubt in Yang An's eyes, Lin Feng offered no explanation. He knew that when that moment arrived, Yang An's expression would be vastly different from what it was now. Seeing the doubt in Yang An's eyes, Lin Feng offered no explanation. He knew that when that moment arrived, Yang An's expression would be vastly different from what it was now. Seeing the doubt in Yang An's eyes, Lin Feng offered no explanation. He knew that when that moment arrived, Yang An's expression would be vastly different from what it was now. Seeing the doubt in Yang An's eyes, Lin Feng offered no explanation. He knew that when that moment arrived, Yang An's expression would be vastly different from what it was now. Seeing the doubt in Yang An's eyes, Lin Feng offered no explanation. He knew that when that moment arrived, Yang An's expression would be vastly different from what it was now. Seeing the doubt in Yang An's eyes, Lin Feng offered no explanation. He knew that when that moment arrived, Yang An's expression would be vastly different from what it was now. Seeing the doubt in Yang An's eyes, Lin Feng offered no explanation. He knew that when that moment arrived, Yang An's expression would be vastly different from what it was now. Seeing the doubt in Yang An's eyes, Lin Feng offered no explanation. He knew that when that moment arrived, Yang An's expression would be vastly different from what it was now. Seeing the doubt in Yang An's eyes, Lin Feng offered no explanation. He knew that when that moment arrived, Yang An's expression would be vastly different from what it was now. Seeing the doubt in Yang An's eyes, Lin Feng offered no explanation. He knew that when that moment arrived, Yang An's expression would be vastly different from what it was now. Chief, you can't do this to me. Please talk some sense into him. The director held the phone, communicating with Chun Haidong. However, Chun Haidong replied with a wry smile. I can't control him either. My rank isn't high enough. I'm only responsible for protection. Then, all right, I have other matters to attend to. Good luck to you. Chun Haidong hung up with a chuckle. At that moment, the director was utterly exasperated, unaware that Chun Haidong was equally frantic. Who would want Lin Feng on such a program? Naturally, keeping it confidential was the priority. But since Lin Feng insisted, there was no other choice. No sooner had the phone call ended than the director saw Lin Feng escorting Yang An out. He waited for Lin Feng to return, then grabbed him. Chief, is there something you need? Lin Feng asked. Stop calling me Chief. It gives me goosebumps, the director quickly said. As they walked together, Lin Feng chuckled. It seems you've made the call. How did you convince them? The director asked. Lin Feng paused, pondering how to spin a tale, but the director interrupted. Forget it, don't tell me. I don't want to know anymore. Nothing can be changed now. With that, the director added, let's go. Where? The television station, the director said. Subsequently, the two arrived at the director's car. Lin Feng instinctively moved to the passenger seat, but the director said catch. Before Lin Feng could react, the director tossed him the keys. Lin Feng's reflexes were decent, but the keys clattered to the ground. Unfazed, he picked them up. After all, it wasn't his car keys that had fallen. Since I'm the chief here, naturally you'll drive, the director said, settling comfortably into the back seat. Lin Feng let out an took the keys and got into the car, muttering under his breath, automatic transmission. I only learned manual. What are you mumbling about? The director asked, gazing out the window. Let me tell you, since you've chosen this path, you must keep a low profile. When we park, open the door for me. That's what a junior staff member should do. Yes, Chief. Lin Feng finally recalled his driving lessons, shifted to D gear, and asked, Chief, ready to go? Go ahead. Let me tell you, there's an art to concealing one's identity. The director had just opened his mouth when his body suddenly lurched forward, nearly hitting the front seat. His eyes caught sight of Lin Feng's foot pressing the accelerator, flooring it from a standstill. A sense of dread washed over the director. 20 minutes later, pale-faced, the director flung open the car door. Before Lin Feng could open it for him, he staggered inside. Chief, where are you going? Lin Feng called out. The director ignored him. After waiting 4 or 5 minutes, Lin Feng saw the director emerge, looking utterly drained. Are you carsick? Lin Feng asked. The director couldn't be bothered to reply, simply asking, are you a novice driver? Obviously, Lin Feng said. I'm 19. How long could I have had my license? The director suddenly understood and could only walk in with his head down, constantly receiving greetings from people who then sized up Lin Feng. Remember, for now, you're just my apprentice, the director said. Lin Feng nodded. Shortly after, the director arrived at the station director's office and told Lin Feng, they'll go in, you stay out here. Lin Feng nodded. His role indeed didn't warrant entry. He stood outside, curiously looking around. Just then, a stunning woman with fair skin dressed in a professional uniform approached. Lin Feng wasn't a man driven by base instincts. He merely glanced at her out of respect. Unexpectedly, the beauty took the initiative to strike up a conversation. Hello. Hello. Lin Feng nodded slightly, showing no surprise. Is someone inside? The woman asked. Lin Feng noticed the nameplate on her chest reading Zhu Ting, likely a host at this station, and nodded yes. Well, thank you. Zhu Ting smiled faintly and stood aside. After a few seconds of awkward silence, she said, you don't seem like a staff member here. Are you new? Oh no, I'm here with my chief, Lin Feng replied. Your chief? Zhu Ting looked him over. Is it the director? Lin Feng nodded. Seeing this, Zhu Ting perked up. I've interviewed him. She then launched into an endless stream of chatter. Through their conversation, Lin Feng confirmed she was a host and seemed to have a good rapport with the director. Could that old director be a lecher? Lin Feng mused. What's wrong? Zhu Ting asked, noticing Lin Feng staring at her. Nothing, Lin Feng snapped back with a smile, pointing at the golden butterfly pendant on her chest. That necklace is beautiful. Seeing Lin Feng mention the necklace, Zhu Ting's expression darkened instantly. She quickly composed herself and said somewhat stiffly, thank you. Lin Feng caught this fleeting change. Before he could dwell on it, the director emerged with a portly man. Zhu Ting promptly greeted the man respectfully as station director and then greeted the director. Oh my, you've gotten even prettier in just 2 weeks, the director said with the slick demeanor of a veteran. Zhu Ting responded with a sweet smile. The station director glanced at Zhu Ting, then at Lin Feng. No wonder you're the director's direct apprentice. Truly talented. Thank you, Lin Feng replied with the utmost respect, playing the role of the junior. The director then said, so it's settled. No problem, the station director nodded, then addressed Zhu Ting. Zhu Ting, take him to get changed and made up. Lin Feng was taken aback, but Zhu Ting quickly reacted. Wasn't today supposed to be an interview with the director? Ever since the director's last talk about space-based weapons, many TV stations had been clamoring to invite him. The reason he agreed to come here was that this was the largest and most authoritative station in Donghai City. No, we're going on together today, the director said with a grin. Lin Feng's mouth twitched. The director's smile was clearly aimed at him. This old fox hadn't mentioned it earlier, leaving him no time to prepare. Hurry along, the director urged. Lin Feng, this way please, Zhu Ting gestured. Lin Feng smiled and followed behind her. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of Donghai City, a major project was officially underway spanning 500 square kilometers. It went through a state-owned bidding process and secured contracts with over 18 first-tier infrastructure companies in one go. Let me reiterate, if any company cuts corners, your business will be shut down. These were the final words of the project leader. After the meeting, the bosses of the 18 companies huddled together, whispering, what kind of project is this? Do you know? Don't ask. It's definitely related to the military. Right, building 500 square kilometers in a month. All 18 bosses knew this was a colossal undertaking. Moreover, they had all signed confidentiality agreements. Yet in truth, they had no idea what they were supposed to keep secret. At the Aerospace Academy on the southern island of Huaxia, a bespectacled man in a doctoral gown looked at the elderly academician before him and said, Teacher, I don't want to go. Why? The old academician looked up. He was the head of the Southern Island Aerospace Program, and the bespectacled man was the chief engineer there. The lunar exploration project has just begun. They need me here, and besides. The man began. Are you worried about your career prospects? The old academician asked. The man stammered, then finally admitted, no, I just don't want to be involved in some low-level project. My talents shouldn't be wasted on. Nonsense. The old academician slammed the table and stood up. Zhou Liming, from the moment we joined this institution, we belong to the nation. Wherever we are needed, there we shall be. Hearing this, Zhou Liming's face darkened. It wasn't that he couldn't endure hardship. He simply yearned to work on the front lines of technology. Clenching his teeth, he asked, can I at least know what the project is? No, the old academician said. Zhou Liming was taken aback, his expression souring further, but then the academician added, because even I don't know. This transfer order came from the highest level. At those words, Zhou Liming's jaw dropped in astonishment. An academician of such high rank, practically the pinnacle of scientific achievement, wasn't even worthy of knowing the project's name. When Zhu walked in, Lin Feng had already finished his makeup. Lin Feng was naturally handsome, and with the military uniform and simple makeup, he looked even more radiant and charming. Only Lin Feng was present. Zhu smiled and said, not bad, you look presentable. Why does a man need makeup? Lin Feng remarked. It's necessary for TV. Even an old man like me has to wear it, Zhu said. It's about image. Lin Feng chuckled. As they spoke, both surveyed their surroundings. Zhu, with his military background, had a sharp eye and took in everything with a single glance. In this regard, Lin Feng was less practiced. Nevertheless, Zhu appreciated Lin Feng's vigilance. Alertness. This was a fundamental quality a soldier. No outstanding man must possess. Don't be nervous on your first time on stage. Say what you should, and he'll stop you if you shouldn't, Zhu said seriously. Lin Feng nodded. Just then footsteps sounded. Zhu's serious expression instantly shifted to a smile as he asked, how's Zhu Ting? What do you mean? I mean, how does she look? Quite pretty, Lin Feng said. Falling for her? Not really, just find it a bit strange. Lin Feng said. What's strange? I feel like she's trying to seduce me, Lin Feng said. Zhu was taken aback, then burst into laughter, saying, nonsense. She's a top returnee from overseas from a wealthy family. Her suitors could line up all the way to Yenjing. That must be exhausting. She's not tired because she ignores them all. I meant the ones lining up, Lin Feng said earnestly. Zhu rolled his eyes. Still, he didn't believe Lin Feng. Zhu Ting was mature and slow to warm up. How could she possibly make the first move on a stranger? About half an hour later, the show finally began. The host was indeed Zhu Ting. The program, titled Military Interview, had high viewership due to the earlier announcement of Zhu's appearance, especially on the online platform. "All right, let's welcome Zhu Zhuo and his apprentice," Zhu Ting said, smiling from the stage. "Here they come." Just past 7 o'clock, a large audience was already waiting in front of TVs and in the live stream. Earlier, Zhu Zhuo had mentioned that the country was researching space-based weapons, causing a stir in society. Among the viewers were curious onlookers, hardcore military enthusiasts, and spies. Indeed, though it was peacetime on the surface, beneath that peace lurked currents far more treacherous than war. "I think it's probably fake. How can you trust someone from the Strategic Deception Bureau? Truth mixed with lies. Could the country really have found the key to space-based weapons? Give it up. The country can't even make top-tier chips." "Exactly. Once the U.S. sanctions us, many of our high-tech capabilities grind to a halt." Amid the heated debates, only a few cared about who Zhu's apprentice was. When the TV screen showed Zhu Ting's voice and then Zhu Zhuo with Lin Feng. "Stop arguing. Let's hear what Zhu Zhuo has to say," someone in the stream shouted, calming the crowd. "Hello, Zhu Zhuo, Lin Feng." "Hello," the two replied. Someone noticed Lin Feng and said, "That young man is quite handsome." "Handsome is useless. This is a military interview. Fan clubs get lost." A brief commotion ensued. Following the show's format, Zhu Ting first asked Zhu Zhuo about the international situation, and he gave a concise response. "Do you think China's technology will be locked down?" Zhu Ting asked bluntly. Hearing this, Zhu Zhuo paused slightly. If this question came from another journalist, it would be nothing. But in Zhu Zhuo's impression, Zhu Ting wasn't the sharp-tongued type. "This is just a request from some of my fans," Zhu Ting said. Zhu Zhuo smiled. He was about to answer when he caught sight of a bored Lin Feng. "Let my apprentice answer this one," he said. "Oh." Zhu Ting turned in surprise. "I didn't know Mr. Lin Feng was an expert in this field." Lin Feng caught Zhu Zhuo's glance and said wryly, "Boss, you're just passing the hard questions to me, aren't you?" The audience laughed, and viewers in front of screens immediately warmed to Lin Feng. Zhu Zhuo meanwhile sipped water and watched, curious to see how Lin Feng would handle the question. "The technology blockade has indeed had a huge impact on us, crippling our high-end industries, especially some critical." Zhu Zhuo coughed strategically. Lin Feng's expression shifted as if he had made a mistake. Viewers groaned, but the next second Lin Feng stood up and declared, "I think there's nothing wrong with saying it. Precisely because of this, we must strive harder. What's there to fear? There's only one Earth. If war breaks out, we can all go down together." "Lin Feng," Zhu Zhuo scolded sternly. "But what I believe we Chinese should do is to be self-reliant. We still have time. Don't drown in a society of entertainment. Instead, strive to contribute to society," Lin Feng declared. Hearing this, Zhu Zhuo's expression softened. But deep down, he wasn't angry at all. Though he hadn't interacted much with Lin Feng, Zhu Zhuo could tell at a glance that Lin Feng was no simpleton. His selection into the Strategic Deception Bureau was no accident. Still, why was Lin Feng speaking with such sudden fervor? Damn, I'm getting fired up. So we're really in this kind of bind. He's right. Worst case, we go down fighting. But if we want change, we have to be self-reliant. "I'm quitting games tomorrow." The audience buzzed with high praise for Lin Feng, while others quickly searched his name online, trying to uncover his identity. At Yenjing University, one of the nation's top institutions, a national security agent handed a file to the university president. The president's face changed instantly upon seeing it. "This is academic fraud," he said angrily. "Sign it." "I will not do such a thing. Yenjing University is not a place for academic forgery or political manipulation," the president said gravely. "Sign it," the agent repeated. "Leave immediately," the president snapped, calling for security. The agent glanced at the two guards, said nothing, and turned to leave. But after 2 steps, the president's phone rang. The next second, the president's voice rang out, "Wait." The agent turned back and handed over the document. The president signed it immediately, then stared at the name, Lin Feng, and asked weakly, "Who is this person? Just now you were trying to keep your job. Now you're trying to save your life?" the agent said coldly. The president shuddered, recalling the voice on the phone. "If you mess this up, the presidency of Yenjing University will change hands." Satisfied with the signature, the agent left. And on Lin Feng's resume, another line was added, "The youngest doctoral graduate of Yenjing University." Lin Feng, male, 19 years old. A native of Donghai City, he is the youngest PhD candidate at Yenjing University and currently holds the rank of Rear Admiral in the Navy. He excelled academically in his youth and was admitted to Yenjing University ahead of time. He has previously published a paper titled Military Maritime Zones. What the hell? A 19-year-old PhD and Rear Admiral. Is that real? Seems a bit fake. Isn't that a bit of an understatement? It's practically written in bold on his backside. No way, Lin Feng must have some powerful backing. For a moment, the internet buzzed with activity, and people began to refer to Lin Feng as the Rear Admiral with the biggest background. However, no one dared to assert the truth of the matter. During a military interview program, Zhu Ting took a few glances at Lin Feng, her eyes reflecting a light that was hard to decipher. Soon her attention shifted to the host, and she said, "Sorry, I shouldn't have asked that question. Let me ask one last question." "Go ahead," the host replied, his expression quickly returning to normal. "Last time you participated in a frontline interview, you indicated that our space-based weaponry was already under research. Is that true?" While Zhu Ting spoke, her pupils meticulously captured every nuance of the host's expression as if she wanted to see right through him. At that moment, the host glanced at Lin Feng before saying, "It's true. Our space-based weaponry has entered the final stages of development. If successful, everyone can look forward to it." Zhu Ting wanted to ask more, but restrained herself, standing up and saying, "Thank you very much to the host and Mr. Lin Feng for the interview." "No need to thank us." The host and Lin Feng stood up, and the screen then cut directly to an advertisement. Meanwhile, viewers across the nation were in an uproar over the news. Space-based weaponry has entered the final stages. Is China really that impressive? In an instant, many felt a surge of pride, but the voices of skepticism were even louder. The host and Lin Feng didn't concern themselves with this and prepared to leave the program when Zhu Ting rushed over, saying, "Host, wait a moment. Is there something?" The host asked casually. "It's..." Zhu Ting scanned the host's expression and said, "I realize I asked an inappropriate question earlier, and I apologize. I'd like to invite both of you to dinner as a gesture of goodwill." "No need for dinner. I have other matters to attend to," the host replied. Zhu Ting visibly looked disappointed. "Let Lin Feng go with you. He just said he was hungry," the host added. Zhu Ting's eyes lit up. Lin Feng looked at the host with confusion, wondering when he had said he was hungry. Nevertheless, Lin Feng followed suit and said, "I am a bit hungry." "Then I'll take my leave first," the host said, and left without looking back. Once the host got into the car, he immediately picked up his phone and called Chun Haidong, saying, "I've done what I needed to do. What exactly are you planning?" "Some interesting matters," Chun Haidong replied. "I've told you about Zhu Ting's identity. Don't mess this up," the host said seriously. "I know you're concerned about Lin Feng's safety, but rest assured, within 10 meters of him, there will definitely be our people. Anyone who dares to make a move against him will meet their end." "I saw the live broadcast. It was quite exciting," Chun Haidong said. Upon hearing this, the host hung up the phone silently, but felt a sense of relief. However, he suddenly recalled Lin Feng's earlier words. He felt that Lin Feng was scheming something. That little rascal. The host turned his head to see Lin Feng getting into Zhu Ting's car and smiled, saying, "Well, to achieve great things, one must endure the trials of passion." "All right then," he said, picking up the phone and saying, "Hello, Donghai News. I have a news tip. The youngest Rear Admiral Lin Feng is on a date with Zhu Ting from Donghai TV, and the location is..." The next day, Lin Feng woke up to the incessant notifications from the system. The reason was that he had received a point reward. 800,000. Lin Feng thought he had misread. Upon recalling, the system had stated, "Ding. You have inspired a batch of young people with your words, reward points 800,000. Lin Feng was instantly overjoyed. It turns out that his speculation was indeed correct. Indeed, through media dissemination, one could gain points. If that is the case, his accumulated points should be enough to redeem the next reward. Just as Lin Feng was filled with excitement, he suddenly heard a knock on the door and said, "Come in." Then the host entered, followed by a beautiful woman with flowing hair. "You actually came back to sleep?" the host said in surprise. "I'm not an ordinary person." Lin Feng knew what he was referring to. "Where are you preparing to go?" the host asked again. "She invited me to dinner today." Lin Feng looked in the mirror again, and the host revealed a momentary strange smile, then pointed to the beautiful woman beside him and said, "She's here for you." After the host left, the beauty immediately stood straight and said, "I am Su Chinsi number 78166, and I will be your assistant from now on." "I thought Minister Chen said he would arrange 10 assistants for me," Lin Feng asked. "One is enough for me," Su Chinsi replied confidently. "Interesting." Lin Feng sat down and asked, "What do you know?" Su Chinsi then picked up her phone and handed it to Lin Feng, who took it and smiled immediately. Inside was information about the discussions and influences he had caused yesterday. Lin Feng was also referred to as the pampered young master of the army, the Rear Admiral with the biggest backing. Especially after the scandal with Zhu Ting came out, he became known as a playboy. "How did you know I wanted to see this?" Lin Feng asked. "Because I think you did it on purpose." "Like what?" Lin Feng looked at her. "Just a hunch." "What kind of hunch?" "A woman's intuition." "How skilled are you?" Lin Feng asked again. "If the host were to make a move against you, he would fall before he could get up." "Last question," Lin Feng said. "You may ask. Am I supposed to pay you the salary of 10 people?" Su Chinsi's serious expression couldn't hide a hint of a smile, just a habitual slight curve of the lips. "How's the breaking ground project going?" "The base construction has already started. It should take about 2 weeks." "Good." Lin Feng nodded, thought for a moment, and said, "I'm hungry. They'll buy you breakfast right away." "You can't cook." "I never said I could cook." "The National Security Bureau." Chun Haidong, as the highest-ranking official in the National Security Bureau, stood respectfully to the side, giving his seat to a man around 50 years old. The fact that someone like Chun Haidong would do this proves the high status of the person in front of him. Zhou Chuanmin, the top figure in the Ministry of State Affairs. He was watching a video containing news of Lin Feng and Zhu Ting's date. When did you find this out? Zhou Chuanmin asked. It was discovered during a live interview with the host, Chun Haidong responded. According to agents' investigations, Zhu Ting is an American spy. When we first learned this news, the Security Bureau was already preparing to act, but was stopped by the host. Oh, why? Zhou Chuanmin asked. He said pawns should fulfill their roles as pawns, Chun Haidong replied. Interesting, go on. Zhou Chuanmin contemplated for a moment, and then smiled. Lin Feng needs a cover identity. A 19-year-old in the military could easily be discovered, so let's set him up as a rear admiral with a strong background who enjoys playing around. This title will lead those spies to think that he doesn't hold much power. Zhou Chuanmin nodded, pondering, then asked, do you think Lin Feng will catch on? Impossible, Chun Haidong chuckled. Lin Feng isn't from an intelligence background. He doesn't operate with the same cunning as the host. And young people who among them isn't fond of romance. Let's consider it a lesson for him. Oh, everyone needs to grow. Our country needs him for the future. Lin Feng, you're amazing. Zhu Ting gazed at Lin Feng with admiration. Lin Feng caught his breath and took a sip of water. Don't get the wrong idea. They weren't in bed, but on the basketball court. For a whole week, Lin Feng had been meeting Zhu Ting for dates. Several times, Zhu Ting hinted that he could take things further, but Lin Feng remained unmoved. This time, Zhu Ting couldn't hold back any longer. Lin Feng, will you be my boyfriend? She asked, looking at him expectantly. She knew that if she wanted to uncover the truth about the space-based weapons, she could start with this young man. She had the American side investigate Lin Feng's background, but found nothing. It wasn't surprising. Lin Feng was likely the son of some high-ranking military official, otherwise he couldn't have easily attained the position of Major General. Second, he was the apprentice of Director Zhu, so he definitely knew. Don't you like me? Of course not. From the first moment I saw you, I fell for you. Then what are you hesitating about? Actually, my father holds a very high position and he expects me to enter into an arranged marriage. Besides, you know that now that we're hanging out together, the media is already attacking me relentlessly. I really want to achieve something to prove myself to my father. Lin Feng spoke with a serious, deceptive tone. Zhu Ting believed him immediately, but inwardly she sneered. Every person who rides on their father's coattails dreams of making their own mark, but more often than not they turn out to be useless. Yet Zhu Ting still put on a look of admiration. You'll wait for me, won't you? Lin Feng asked. Zhu Ting nodded. Just as Zhu Ting nodded, Lin Feng heard the system chime, ding. You have successfully deceived the TV host, earning 1,000 points. Another 100,000. A glint of light flashed in Lin Feng's eyes. From the moment Zhu Ting had taken the initiative to seduce him, he had been watching her closely, and he noticed a particular detail. When Lin Feng had spoken on the TV show, the system had notified him that he had deceived Zhu Ting, earning 5,000 points. Consider this: Li Chongshan, the head of the Eastern Research Department, had only given him a paltry few points. Yet Zhu Ting, a mere TV host, had such a high point value. That was highly suspicious. Don't worry. Once this plan succeeds, he'll turn things around, Lin Feng said. What plan? Zhu Ting's eyes lit up, then she quickly added, should I not ask? Lin Feng looked around, then smiled. He'll tell you, but you can't speak of it. Don't worry, I know the consequences, Zhu Ting said. Actually, Lin Feng hesitated, then said, never mind, this matter is too important. You don't trust me. Zhu Ting turned away and feigned anger. Don't be mad. Lin Feng acted like a lovesick fool, pulling her back. He'll tell you, okay. Zhu Ting reluctantly turned back. Lin Feng spoke slowly. Actually, the space-based weapon is a fake. Director Zhu said that to cover up the production of our 6th-generation fighter jet, which is nearly complete. A 6th-generation fighter. Zhu Ting was stunned. The advancement of fighter jets represents a nation's air supremacy. The world was watching to see who would build the first 6th-generation fighter. This news must be sent back home immediately. Zhu Ting's inner turmoil mirrored her expression, but it also revealed a wild joy. Sending this news back would make her a hero in America. Lin Feng just smiled at her. The system had just notified him that he had earned another 100,000 points. My name is on this project, so it's like I've earned a military achievement, Lin Feng said excitedly. Hearing this, Zhu Ting felt even more contempt. In essence, it was all about his father's influence to get his name included, as if it were his own merit. You'll wait for me, right? Lin Feng gazed at her tenderly. Of course, Zhu Ting nodded. Lin Feng gently took her hand. Thank you, Zhu Ting. 100 meters from the basketball court, Su Chenxi was typing on a laptop. When Lin Feng approached from behind, she stood up without even looking. Do you have eyes in the back of your head? Lin Feng asked in surprise. I'm a professional, Su Chenxi replied, still focused on her notebook. That woman is not simple. Should I investigate her? No need for an investigation. We'll have results soon, Lin Feng said with a smile. How did you know? Woman's intuition. Do all agents rely on intuition? Lin Feng teased. Su Chenxi finally closed her laptop. A woman's intuition is very sharp, so it's worth using. Lin Feng smiled faintly. Has anything developed? The scientists and technicians from various regions have arrived. Old Yang asks if you'd like to come see. Su Chenxi said. Lin Feng nodded. Just as he did, the system chimed ding. You have deceived the American military, earning 100 points. The American military. Lin Feng paused, then let out a breath. Now he understood everything. Very interesting, Lin Feng said, but his heart grew heavier. It seemed that beneath the surface of peace, currents of danger lurked everywhere. What's wrong? Su Chenxi asked. Nothing. Lin Feng said, stepping into the car with a heavy tread. Zhou Liming carried his luggage, gazing at the newly constructed base. It was clear that a major project was about to begin here. Although the base's exterior wasn't finished, its scale was already evident. Zhou Liming, he said to the staff member. The staff meticulously verified his identity and then wanted to inspect his backpack. But Zhou Liming refused. This contains materials about the South Island Aerospace Project. It can't be disclosed, he said firmly. I'm sorry, the staff member insisted. You must undergo inspection. How dare you? Zhou Liming's eyes sharpened. He couldn't help it. His heart was still more attached to the South Island Aerospace Project, having poured so much into the moon exploration plan. Moreover, scientists generally disliked being forced into things, so his irritation was understandable. Just as the argument escalated, an aged voice rang out. Let him go. The staff member who was about to force the inspection released Zhou Liming. The latter turned around, and when he saw the newcomer's face, he immediately snapped to attention. He couldn't believe he was seeing the Titan of China's space field, Yang. Zhou Liming, right? Yang said. Yes. Yes, sir. Zhou Liming, he said, barely daring to breathe, his heart racing. His idol was Yang. I know the moon exploration plan is your life's work, but... Yang looked at him. Do you want to be confined to just one project your whole life? Zhou Liming paused, then looked up sharply at Yang. If Yang was personally involved, it meant this project was far more astonishing than the moon exploration plan. Think it over, then sign this. Yang handed him a confidentiality agreement. But once you sign, your name may disappear from China. Hearing this, Zhou Liming understood immediately. This project was definitely on a higher level than the moon exploration plan. Without a second thought, he signed it and handed his backpack to the staff. Bowing his head to Yang, he asked, May I know what this project is? Yang gestured for him to follow. When Zhou Liming entered, he realized it wasn't just a surface base, there was also an underground one. And he wasn't alone. He spotted many familiar faces. Zhang Dong, a technical backbone from Southwest Aerospace, specializing in propulsion systems. Sun Lei, a prodigy from the China Machinery Bureau, an expert in mechanical quality. And many more. These were the top talents from every field, now all gathered together. Surprised. This is just the beginning, Yang said with a smile. What is this? Zhou Liming took a deep breath. Yang pointed upward. Only then did Zhou Liming notice the emblem on the wall, the space-based cannon project. A space-based weapon. Zhou Liming felt as if struck by lightning. If it was a space-based weapon, that was terrifying. He understood that this project's technical demands far exceeded those of the moon exploration plan. Looking further down, Zhou Liming was puzzled. The first name for chief engineer wasn't Yang. Yang was second as deputy chief engineer. The first was Lin Feng. Lin Feng. Who is this person? Why is his name ahead of old Yang's? It sounds familiar somehow. Upon arriving at the base, Lin Feng witnessed firsthand the might of China, often hailed as an infrastructure powerhouse. Su Chenxi, who had done her homework, walked behind him, detailing what the unfinished base already possessed and what was yet to be constructed. As he walked, Lin Feng noticed Yang among the crowd studying blueprints with Zhou Liming and a group of scientists. Lin Feng did not disturb them and continued forward. However, if Lin Feng noticed them, they naturally noticed him as well, especially Zhou Liming. Sun Lei might be called a prodigy, but he was actually 35 years old now. A 19-year-old like Lin Feng seemed utterly out of place here. Suddenly, a memory surfaced. He recalled hearing a news report while taking the high-speed train to Donghai. Lin Feng, a major general who had risen through connections and was even linked in a scandal with a television host. At this thought, Zhou Liming clenched his fists. He noticed that the scientists beside him also clenched their fists. As scientists, they held deep contempt for such individuals. Clearly, Lin Feng's name had been included merely to gild his resume and secure a promotion. In truth, this project had nothing to do with him. Wait a moment. Yang said, his face lighting up with excitement upon seeing Lin Feng. This project was beyond Yang's capabilities. If Lin Feng hadn't come, there would have been trouble. He walked straight toward Lin Feng, which only deepened Zhou Liming and the others' displeasure. It wasn't that they disliked Yang's actions, but rather they felt Lin Feng's backing was indeed formidable. Let's start with the eyes. The conversion of the energy system is indeed crucial, but what we need is the ability to precisely strike a building even without the Beidou system, and even a single person, Lin Feng said, causing Yang to gasp. A single person. Yang swallowed hard and asked, can it really be done? Absolutely, Lin Feng replied with a smile. Don't you trust me? Of course not, Yang said. If we follow your lead after this project, we might even be able to upgrade the Beidou system. Certainly, Lin Feng said with a smile. Yang grew even more excited. Just as they were discussing, Zhou Liming approached. He was tactful enough to wait until they had finished speaking before stepping forward. Something the matter? Yang asked. Master Yang, I have a question about the blueprint. Zhou Liming glanced at Lin Feng as he spoke. Go ahead, Yang said. To achieve precision strikes on every corner of Blue Star, we must launch at least 3 space-based cannons to fully envelop the planet. How can one suffice? Zhou Liming asked. Blue Star was a sphere, of full coverage required at least 3 or more. Yang glanced at the blueprint. This point was also unclear to him. Noticing Yang An's expression, Zhou Liming was stunned. Had Yang not created this blueprint? In China, only Yang should have been capable of drafting it. Yet without a second thought, Yang turned and asked Chief Engineer Lin, what do you think? Hearing this, Zhou Liming was first taken aback, then utterly bewildered. Someone of Yang An's stature asking a layman. He felt his worldview was about to shatter. But Lin Feng simply pointed to the 18 fulcrums on the blueprint and said, the Eagle Eye laser system. It contains a precision refraction system. With it, we can fully cover every corner of Blue Star, even 100 meters deep in the ocean. Its structure differs from ordinary space satellites. You can think of it as projecting countless satellite phantoms around Blue Star. Zhou Liming was stunned. He had never even heard of the concepts Lin Feng explained, yet they brought him sudden clarity. He had always wondered what those 18 fulcrum devices were. At the same time, he stared at Lin Feng in astonishment and asked, how can one space cannon strike the entire globe? The Qian-Shuesan trajectory. Lin Feng continued. Using this principle, we can perfectly solve the turning problem and even gain acceleration. Zhou Liming was deeply shaken. This was no longer the original principle of that trajectory, it was an upgraded version. His gaze toward Lin Feng shifted from shock to respect and reverence. He asked timidly, Master Yang, this blueprint? Yang understood and said with a smile, otherwise why do you think he is the chief engineer and not me? Zhou Liming exhaled and immediately bowed his head. Lin Feng paused and asked Dr. Zhou, what are you doing? I'm very sorry for misunderstanding you earlier. Zhou Liming said excitedly, if I was wrong, I should apologize. Lin Feng simply smiled, thought for a moment, and said, we're all just working for the nation, for this country. What we protect is this land. China Task Force USA, a 6th-generation fighter. Wilson stared at the report in disbelief. The U.S. 6th-generation fighter was still under construction and nearing completion, but China was also about to finish theirs. This was utterly unbelievable. After all, they had long imposed a technology blockade on China. What do we do now? A team member asked Wilson. Wilson paced back and forth and said, don't you think it's time to activate the Starshot plan? The team member paused. Years ago, Max, the owner of a U.S. car brand, proposed the Starshot plan using satellites to surround Blue Star. But beneath the surface, another Starshot plan was being executed. 3 years ago, the U.S. dispatched 80,000 spies worldwide. They were hidden in every corner of the world. And China was the main battleground of this Starshot plan. You mean? The team member began. Gather their intelligence and at all costs destroy their 6th-generation fighter production line. Understood. Lin Feng was now quite exasperated. Zhou Liming was a persistent man. Once he realized you were exceptional, he would pester you with endless questions. Of course, he wasn't gossipy, his questions were all technical. Lin Feng was patient and answered them one by one. Dr. Zhou, just call me Liming. All right, Dr. Zhou, Lin Feng said seriously. In your opinion, does China need to strengthen its air force or its navy? Unexpectedly, Zhou Liming grew excited at the question. The reason the U.S. dominates the globe is that their navy can overpower the navies of the entire world. Our naval power is just beginning, but our air force is already world-class. If the space-based cannons are ever compromised, we will achieve absolute air superiority. Oh, I see, Lin Feng nodded. Why do you ask? Zhou Liming inquired. No, nothing. Lin Feng shook his head and said nothing. It was only later that Zhou Liming learned his words had led to the creation of a super aircraft carrier fleet in China. Lin Feng glanced at the points in his system. He now had nearly 2 million points. He looked further and noticed there were also exchanges for physiques. For instance, strength and speed, but each was marked with an upper limit. That makes sense. You can't just turn a person into something faster than a cheetah. Still, it's really expensive. Lin Feng saw that each point cost 100,000 to exchange. Though it pained him, Lin Feng exchanged for 8 points, 4 added to strength and 4 to speed. After all, balanced development was the way to go. Finally, he focused on the aircraft carrier. The system's note for it read, an extremely advanced aircraft carrier. Not even a single piece of data. Lin Feng thought to himself, feeling a bit worried. After all, these points were hard-earned. But he was a decisive man, so he immediately chose to exchange. Ding! Exchange successful. 100,000 points deducted. You have obtained the super aircraft carrier blueprint. Ding! Your mall consumption points have reached 1.8 million. Spend another 3.2 million to earn one lottery chance. What the hell? Lin Feng was utterly astonished. Was this system actually pulling such shady merchant tricks? Still 3.2 million more was too much. Lin Feng didn't hold any illusions about the lottery. He said to Su Qinxi, who was tapping away on a laptop by the door, "Help me find someone with authority to talk to. Someone big." Lin Feng thought had need to explain further, but Su Qinxi simply said, "Okay." Half an hour later, Lin Feng got out of the car feeling a bit nervous. Before him stood the East China Sea branch of the State Affairs Department. The highest-ranking person in the department was waiting inside. He composed himself and finally stepped through the door. "I can't go in. My clearance isn't high enough," Su Qinxi said, looking at the two guards in black suits with dragon patterns by the entrance. "Then wait for me outside," Lin Feng replied. Lin Feng said. Su Qinxi nodded. As Lin Feng walked in, he glanced around and thought for a moment before asking, "Don't I need a security check?" "No need," the guard said with a smile, gesturing for him to enter. "He's waiting for you." Lin Feng approached the door and took a deep breath. To be honest, the person he was about to meet was the second most important figure in China. This person had made extraordinary contributions to the nation. He pushed the door open. Zhou Quanmin wasn't sitting. He was standing, welcoming Lin Feng. "You're here," Zhou Quanmin said with a warm smile. "Come in quickly." Lin Feng felt a wave of warmth and walked over slowly. "No need to be nervous," Zhou Quanmin said with a smile, handing him a cup of tea. Lin Feng accepted it with both hands, and they both sat down. "I've always wanted to meet you, but I never had the time," Zhou Quanmin said slowly. "When I heard you wanted to see me, I finally had an excuse to sneak out for a walk." Lin Feng smiled. "Have you run into some trouble?" Zhou Quanmin asked. The breakthrough plan was an SS-level project. Such a project had the highest priority nationwide. "No," Lin Feng shook his head. "I came this time mainly to discuss two things with you." Zhou Quanmin picked up his teacup, looking at Lin Feng with curiosity. He wondered if Lin Feng was going to ask for something from the state. Unexpectedly, Lin Feng said, "What do you think? If we build Ford-class aircraft carriers and space-based weapons simultaneously, can our military budget handle it?" Zhou Quanmin paused, nearly spitting out his tea. "What did you just say?" he asked in astonishment. "I said Ford-class aircraft carriers." Zhou Quanmin came to his senses. "Yes. Are you saying you have a Ford-class aircraft carrier?" Zhou Quanmin, now fully alert, was both shocked and hopeful. Lin Feng nodded. Seeing that nod, Zhou Quanmin dropped his cup, which shattered with a loud bang. The guards outside immediately pushed the door open. "Get out," Zhou Quanmin ordered. "From now on, no one is allowed into this room without my permission." "Understood," the guard replied, then left and closed the door. Zhou Quanmin took several deep breaths, looking at Lin Feng. "Are you serious?" he asked. "I've brought the blueprints," Lin Feng said. "As usual, you can take them back to Yanjing for study." With that, he opened his briefcase and handed them to Zhou Quanmin. "Good, excellent." Zhou Quanmin was ecstatic. The gap between a Ford-class carrier and an ordinary one wasn't just in displacement, it was a vast chasm in mechanical structure, technological equipment, chips, and everything else. After Zhou Quanmin put down the blueprints with trembling hands, he looked at Lin Feng expectantly. "What about the second matter?" Lin Feng took a breath, thought for a moment, and said, "You must have seen what I said in the TV interview." Zhou Quanmin nodded. "Right now we're in a very awkward period. But a lot of the entertainment industry is holding back many talented people. For example, in terms of systems and salaries. Is it fair that a scientist earns less than a third-rate celebrity?" Lin Feng asked earnestly. "Lin Feng, this is determined by the market and national conditions. We are gradually improving and changing this treatment," Zhou Quanmin quickly explained. But Lin Feng said, "I think it's time for a change." Zhou Quanmin paused. "Make fields like mathematics and physics the focus of education. Design high scholarships, and so on," Lin Feng said rapidly. Zhou Quanmin immediately responded, "Let's not rush into that. Our high-tech projects don't require that many talents. If we invest too much, it could disrupt the market. What if I told you that space-based cannons and Ford-class carriers are just the beginning?" Lin Feng said. Hearing this, Zhou Quanmin was finally moved. He pondered for a long time, looking at Lin Feng with surprise in his eyes. A saying came to mind: in times of crisis, the land of China will always be blessed with a formidable hero. "I need to hold a meeting to discuss this," Zhou Quanmin said seriously. Lin Feng nodded. He knew that this matter, though seemingly simple, was actually very complex. It involved changes to the education system and economic policies. The two of them discussed it for nearly 3 hours before finally wrapping up. "They'll be going now," Lin Feng said. "Wait," Zhou Quanmin said. Lin Feng paused and saw Zhou Quanmin give a military salute. Lin Feng was stunned, then quickly returned the salute. "Comrade Lin Feng, thank you for your contributions to the nation," Zhou Quanmin said. Lin Feng, maintaining the same posture, replied, "This country is mine too." Zhou Quanmin watched Lin Feng leave from the main entrance, his heart surging with excitement. Deep down, he believed what Lin Feng had said. Was all of this just the beginning? He turned to his assistant and said, "Tell the airport I need the fastest flight back to Yanjing immediately." "Yes." Also summon all officials above the ministry level for a meeting. Yes. The assistant turned and left, curiosity burning within. The change in Zhou Quanmin's demeanor before and after entering was too drastic. What could possibly excite a figure of his stature so much? 3 hours later, Zhou Quanmin arrived at the China National Scientific Research Center, the pinnacle of the nation's technological fields. The director was startled when he saw Zhou Quanmin, but before he could speak, Zhou Quanmin ordered, "Call in everyone who knows anything about aircraft carriers." Understood, the director quickly nodded. Soon over 30 experts gathered around a table, meticulously scrutinizing the documents before them. Zhou Quanmin waited anxiously beside them. He needed to confirm one thing. Finally, 5 hours later, the experts seemed hesitant and troubled, but many of them were visibly excited. Zhou Quanmin couldn't hold back any longer and seized the opportunity to ask, "Is this really Ford-class carrier technology?" Unexpectedly, one elderly scientist clenched his fist and said, "Leader, you must be joking, right?" Zhou Quanmin paused, his face full of disappointment. But the next second, the elderly scientist added, "Compared to this, what is a Ford-class carrier?" Zhou Quanmin was completely stunned. He looked up sharply and saw all the carrier experts grinning sharply. A young scientist directly said, "The Ford-class carrier is nothing but a little brother compared to this." Hearing these words, Zhou Quanmin finally burst into wild laughter, a smile so unguarded it defied all decorum. "If you were to fight that agent with the black dragon tattoo, who would win?" Lin Feng asked Su Chenxi curiously. "I would," Su Chenxi replied expressionlessly. "You're bragging." Lin Feng sized her up and said, "I feel like you don't have much strength." Su Chenxi didn't refute him, instead asking, "The internet has a terrible opinion of you right now. Don't you want to fix that?" "It doesn't matter. Isn't this image something your National Security Bureau cooked up?" Lin Feng said. Su Chenxi merely glanced at him. Strictly speaking, she didn't belong to the National Security Bureau. Her existence, or rather she only appeared when a whitelist target emerged. In Huaxiao, every whitelist individual had such a person by their side. Suddenly his phone rang. Su Chenxi prepared to leave discreetly, but Lin Feng said, "Stay here." Su Chenxi turned back and opened her laptop again. Lin Feng answered the call. "Zhou Quanmin," the voice on the other end said. Lin Feng felt a surge of anticipation and asked, "How did it go?" "You are." "Never mind. The aircraft carrier experts have verified it. The blueprints you have far surpass the most advanced Ford-class carrier, the Boschild 1 of the United States." Zhou Quanmin's voice trembled as he spoke. Lin Feng was not surprised. Technology obtained from the system could never be matched by American advancements. "What about funding?" Lin Feng hinted. "You underestimate Huaxia," Zhou Quanmin said. "Even if we had multiple projects running simultaneously, it wouldn't be a problem. We are no longer in that era where we had to pool the entire nation's resources just to develop an atomic bomb." Lin Feng finally breathed a sigh of relief. To be honest, he wasn't in power, so he wasn't familiar with this aspect. "When can we start?" Lin Feng asked. "Immediately." Zhou Quanmin said, "The base is already being prepared as we speak." Lin Feng was overjoyed. He needed this kind of efficiency. He then inquired, "And regarding the education reform?" "That still needs some discussion." Zhou Quanmin's voice dropped slightly, then grew firm. "Don't worry, as long as it's right, things will change." In the days that followed, Lin Feng occasionally dined with Zhu Ting and visited the space base. Finally, on the 26th day, Yang informed Lin Feng that all preparations for the space-based weapon were complete. Lin Feng arrived at the base as promised and noticed many more staff members there. "You're here." Yang saw Lin Feng and came over to greet him. Lin Feng scanned the surroundings and asked, "Are the equipment and everything assembled?" Yang nodded and said, "Many of our munitions factories are in other regions. Here we mainly produce and assemble the core components." Lin Feng nodded. The mechanical parts of the space-based cannon were staggering in number, as it was a space weapon carrying armaments. After nearly half an hour, the groundbreaking ceremony was ready. "Pleased," Yang said, looking at Lin Feng. "You are a veteran in space technology, and I am unfamiliar with this." "Please," Yang said with a smile. The higher-ups had decreed that Lin Feng must preside over this ceremony. First, it was to train Lin Feng. Second, he was without a doubt the chief engineer of the space-based cannon. Lin Feng looked down and saw scientists like Zhou Liming looking up at him. By now, virtually everyone knew that the chief engineer of their space-based cannon project was a 19-year-old youth. His name was Lin Feng. Everyone here was at least over 25 years old, but no one dared to underestimate him anymore. Lin Feng took a deep breath, thought for a moment, stepped forward slowly, stood before the microphone, and felt a bit nervous. Yang could also see Lin Feng's nervousness. However, the moment Lin Feng began to speak, his demeanor transformed. Yang saw confidence in Lin Feng's eyes. Absolute confidence. "A month ago, the blueprint behind me was born. A month later, we gather here. To this end, we have mobilized over 3,000 top-tier scientists and technicians from across the nation and more than 30,000 workers. And beneath them, there are countless more. We are here for one purpose, the space-based cannon." As Lin Feng spoke, he swept his gaze across the audience. The eyes of many below also grew fervent. The current international situation is uncertain and we face technological blockades. Why is that? We are not strong enough yet. If we possess this weapon, we will lead the world and achieve absolute air supremacy. 180 days. Yes, my requirement for you is 180 days. If any of you wish to back out now, speak up. Rest assured your confidentiality agreements will be voided after 180 days, and I guarantee that no one will threaten your safety. Having said this, Lin Feng scanned the crowd again. No one below wavered or spoke. In their hearts, many doubted Lin Feng's timeline. However, they believed the project would succeed. Moreover, this was a 3S project. To participate in such a project was an honor. Lin Feng didn't care about their thoughts. He finally looked at Yang and who nodded at him, and Lin Feng's voice rose abruptly. I declare Operation Breakthrough officially begins. The entire audience applauded. Suddenly Zhou Liming spoke up, Chief Engineer Lin, what will the space-based cannon be called? Many nodded in agreement. This weapon needed a name. It will be our sword in the heavens. Lin Feng said slowly. So let it be called Heavenly Sword. The crowd was stunned by these words. Heavenly Sword. A sword poised over the skies of Huaxia, it would safeguard the absolute security of Huaxia's space. While Lin Feng and his team were tirelessly building the space-based cannon, the land of Huaxia was far from peaceful. After Wilson issued the Starlink directive, countless spies buried across Huaxia became active. Their directive was singular. Find the production base of Huaxia's 6th-generation fighter jet and destroy it. They also dispatched a commander, McLean, a former U.S. Special Forces operative with years of undercover experience. His cover was an investor in a foreign enterprise with a spotless record in every aspect. On that day, he arrived at Donghai International Airport and saw Zhu Ting, the one who had reported the 6th-generation fighter information. Hello, Mr. McLean, it's a pleasure to meet you. Zhu Ting looked at McLean as if she were seeing her master. McLean, however, scanned her up and down, a lecherous grin curling on his lips. People like Zhu Ting were the easiest to manipulate. They craved a sense of superiority, believed the United States was a land of freedom and equality, and with a little slander against Huaxiao, they would sell their souls like dogs. The higher-ups are very satisfied with the information you provided, McLean began, and they have agreed to grant you American citizenship. Really? Zhu Ting's eyes lit up. Of course. As long as this operation to destroy the 6th-generation fighter succeeds, you will be a hero of our nation. McLean raised his voice. Zhu Ting's breathing quickened upon hearing this. She despised this eastern land. She felt even the air here was polluted. She couldn't wait to go to that advanced and free country. She believed that was her paradise. Ding. Mission triggered. Lin Feng was reading a book when he suddenly heard the system's chime. Eliminate the spies of the Starlink project. Rewards will be granted based on the number eliminated. The system's voice abruptly ceased. Startled by the system's prompt, Lin Feng was stunned for a long moment, completely oblivious to what had just transpired. He rested his chin on his hand and gazed ahead. What was the Starlink project? Spies. Could it be? Lin Feng instinctively thought of Zhu Ting. Lately, due to the matter of the Heavenly Sword, he had somewhat neglected Zhu Ting, believing this woman had no further use. Now it seemed the situation had changed. Su Chenxi. Lin Feng called out. Su Chenxi entered. Do you know about the Starlink project? Lin Feng was direct. Su Chenxi had said that as long as Lin Feng didn't speak, she wouldn't utter a word to anyone. Just as Su Chenxi was about to answer, Lin Feng said, not the satellite one. Su Chenxi shook her head. Lin Feng pondered and asked, is there a lot of espionage between countries these days? Of course, Su Chenxi nodded immediately. Do you remember the infamous New Air incident from a few years ago? Lin Feng nodded. The New Air incident was notorious. The plane had vanished mysteriously, prompting a massive search effort, yet to this day no definitive conclusion had been reached about where the aircraft had gone. But if I recall, only 8 of the passengers were Chinese, the rest were from other countries, Lin Feng said. He paused, looking at Su Chenxi. Was that incident related to espionage? Exactly, Su Chenxi said rapidly. On that plane was an expert in aircraft carriers. Our country spent a long time and great effort to persuade him to return home, but the spies found out. Among the 8 were him and his family of 3. Because of that, our aircraft carrier program was delayed by nearly a year. Lin Feng's eyes lit up at this. Shot down. As for who did it, I don't need to spell it out, Su Chenxi said. Lin Feng exhaled. Who else could it be but the United States? And then, oi, Lin Feng asked. No evidence, so what could we do? We had to swallow that bitterness. Su Chenxi said. Lin Feng nodded, now intensely curious about the system's mission. The Starlink project. It seemed this project must be an espionage scheme. Oh, a rare guest. The chief looked at Lin Feng as he walked, in his tone tinged with sarcasm. Lin Feng asked in surprise, I haven't upset you lately, have I? I hired you to be on duty, but here I am paying you while I end up on duty more than you. And now there's a bunch of reporters outside wanting to interview you, and I have to fend them off, the chief grumbled, puffing on a cigarette. Lin Feng chuckled. I've been busy lately. I went to West Sea Island. Isn't that a naval base? What were you doing there? The chief perked up. How did you know? Lin Feng smiled. Hey, don't underestimate me. I was a rear admiral from the Navy, you know, the chief said, proudly pointing to the medals on his chest. I served there. Impressive, boss, Lin Feng teased sarcastically. Come on, tell me what you were doing there, the chief said, his expression as curious as a gossipy woman's. Well, nothing much, Lin Feng replied. I just want to help take a look at an aircraft carrier. Huh. The chief laughed outright. You're a space researcher. The sea and the sky are worlds apart. What do you know about aircraft carriers? Different technologies entirely. Well, Lin Feng coughed dryly. I didn't want to go either, but this carrier can't be developed without me. You're all talk. What did you say? The chief jolted awake the cigarette, but dropping into his hand as he stood up, unheeding. He stared at Lin Feng. You didn't pull out another set of aircraft carrier blueprints, did you? Holy shit. The chief was suddenly electrified. Tell me, what class is it? Ford class. Ha. The chief shook Lin Feng vigorously. As a retired naval officer, he naturally yearned for the nation's navy to grow stronger. Let me finish, Lin Feng said. It's not Ford class. The chief looked disappointed. That expert said the Ford class is like a little brother compared to this one. Lin Feng added. The chief paused. This time he was stunned for a long while before coming to his senses. Surpassing the Ford class. What did that even mean? His first instinct was disbelief, but then he recalled the space-based orbital cannon blueprints Lin Feng had produced, and realization dawned. I told you. The chief lit another cigarette. My judgment has always been razor-sharp. Lin Feng rolled his eyes, thinking to himself that the old man really knew how to pat himself on the back. He cast a sidelong glance at the chief, who seemed lost in some fantasy, and asked, When are you going to the East Sea TV station for another interview? Take me along. The chief chuckled. What, after just a few days out you can't keep it in your pants? What are you talking about? How are you going to tell me there's nothing between you and Zhu Ting? The chief grinned. Lin Feng sized up the chief. How about I tell you a secret, and you give me a raise? The first part was fine, but at the latter the chief smiled. I don't like secrets. Cheapskate, Lin Feng rolled his eyes. All right, I'll tell you, but don't be shocked. Say it or don't, the chief replied gruffly. Zhu Ting isn't ordinary. Good in bed. Perverted. Lin Feng sneered. I mean, she's a spy. At this, the chief's pupils contracted sharply, and his cigarette fell to the floor again. He scanned Lin Feng. How do you know? Did Su Chenxi tell you? No, she wouldn't say a word. Lin Feng didn't answer him, instead staring at the chief. You already knew? The chief was shocked. Lin Feng was equally stunned. Realizing he had slipped up, the chief coughed. No, I'm just shocked. How could a female host be a spy? Don't try to fool me. Spill it, Lin Feng insisted, unconvinced. Seeing he was caught, the chief dropped the act. Fine. I found out a little before you did. How much earlier? 2 or 3 years. You? I didn't do anything. You were definitely trying to test my resolve with a woman, Lin Feng said angrily. Not at all, the chief laughed. Minister Chun and I just wanted you to learn a lesson. You're still young. So he's not a good guy either. Watch your tongue, the chief rolled his eyes, then asked curiously, how did you find out? I told you she tried to seduce me. Lin Feng smiled, offering no further explanation. He looked at the chief. Old man, want to play a big game? The chief's eyes lit up, and he grinned back. All right, let's hear it. The director discovered that Lin Feng was increasingly full of surprises. This man could actually identify a spy all on his own. She approached me just to find out about the space-based weapons, Lin Feng said as he sat down. What did you tell her? I said that your mention of space-based weapons back then was merely a cover for the 6th-generation fighter jets that were already completed and about to be deployed. Lin Feng stated. Upon hearing this, the director chuckled. The 6th-generation fighter jets were certainly under research, but they wouldn't be ready anytime soon. Developing such aircraft wasn't a simple task. Each generational leap brought a qualitative transformation. She believed it, Lin Feng said. How do you know she believed it? Simple. She activated a large number of spies. Lin Feng continued. I suspect their goal is to sabotage the production line for the 6th-generation fighters. The director frowned, curious. Did Su Chenxi help you investigate this? Lin Feng paused. Why do you ask? No. Nothing. The director was inwardly astonished, judging by Lin Feng's expression. Su Chenxi wasn't involved. What exactly is Su Chenxi's identity? I asked agents from the State Security Bureau, but no one dared to answer, Lin Feng said. Just an ordinary agent, the director said with a dry laugh. Maybe she knows a few more skills than most. Fine, keep your secrets. Lin Feng was genuinely curious, but since the other party wouldn't say, there was nothing he could do. He continued, I want to set a trap and lure them in. Hearing this, the director tapped the table. Think about it, if they came to sabotage the 6th-generation fighter production line, they'll inevitably expose many spies. We can catch them all at once. Lin Feng said. You mean set up a fake production line? The director immediately understood. Lin Feng smiled. It's much easier talking to a cunning old fox like you. Those scientists are so dull. The director rolled his eyes, but still said, Come on, tell me your specific plan. In a luxurious hotel bed, Zhu Ting lay naked atop McLean, asking with satisfaction, "Can I really return to my country after this mission?" "Of course," McLean said, stroking her hair. "My word is absolute." Zhu Ting was overjoyed. "But..." McLean's tone shifted. Zhu Ting quickly asked, "But what?" "But to complete our mission, we must first destroy the 6th-generation fighter production line." McLean said. "Don't we have many spies?" Zhu Ting asked. "It's impossible to find." McLean said. "Such top-tier military equipment in Huaxia is bound to be a state secret. How could they possibly uncover it?" Zhu Ting thought for a moment. "Then when do we have to wait until Lin Feng from the Bureau of Strategic Deception," McLean hinted. "You want me to work on him?" Zhu Ting asked. "Exactly. For him to reveal such a secret to you, he must trust you and have feelings for you." McLean said. "Approaching him should make things much easier." "He probably doesn't know either," Zhu Ting said. "The Bureau of Strategic Deception holds a lot of intelligence, and this Lin Feng has a significant background. Even we can't trace it." McLean said. "Currently, he seems to be the son of some military big shot." Hearing this, Zhu Ting wasn't surprised it was her guess too. "You mean I should?" Zhu Ting understood the simplest way to conquer a man. "Miss Zhu, our country doesn't force anyone. Everything is voluntary." McLean smiled. "He'll think about it." Zhu Ting sighed, reluctant inside. She despised this country beneath her feet and its people. This kid. He's a treasure trove. Chen Haidong looked at the proposal submitted by the director and couldn't help but laugh heartily. Eliminating spies was the State Security Bureau's job. They were the experts. The assistant beside him asked, "What did he do?" "He told the Americans that we've successfully developed the 6th-generation fighter and are preparing for mass production." This? The assistant was stunned. Chen Haidong pondered for a moment and said, "Arrange for a base in the central China region and make sure the decor looks impressive." "What about the interior?" "Just set it up casually." Chen Haidong signed off directly. "This needs to be done quickly." "Understood." The assistant left swiftly. Chen Haidong looked at the proposal in his hand and smiled. Lin Feng had discovered Zhu Ting was a spy on his own. Such cleverness made him an ideal candidate for the State Security Bureau. Unfortunately, he was more valuable to the nation elsewhere. At the same time, he picked up his phone and called the director. So on the third day, when Lin Feng returned from the base, he heard the news: "The higher-ups have approved our proposal." "Excellent." Lin Feng was overjoyed. "How's the space-based weapon development going?" the director asked curiously. He normally shouldn't ask, but since Lin Feng was here, he figured he couldn't avoid suspicion anyway, so he might as well indulge his curiosity. "The space-based orbital cannon involves many brand-new technologies. Even with blueprints, the team needs time to learn, so the early stages will be slow," Lin Feng explained. "So you're relatively free now?" "No," Lin Feng said dejectedly. "Tomorrow I have to go to West Sea Island to study the aircraft carrier." "West Sea Island?" The director's eyes lit up. "You want to come too?" Lin Feng asked. "Of course, it's my old base." The director said. "You can go if you want." The director was speechless. Lin Feng then remembered that the place was now a top-secrets-level base. Without Lin Feng, the director couldn't get in. Fine, I'll take you," Lin Feng said, amused. The director was as excited as a child. As a former naval officer, he was eager to see what an aircraft carrier that could surpass the Ford class looked like. "By the way, Zhu Ting seems to be getting impatient. She's contacted me on her own. He'll lie low for a few days and let the bait dangle," Lin Feng said. The director nodded, but his mind was already racing. He imagined the faces of the ustled nations when this aircraft carrier finally emerged. How spectacular it would be. And all of this was orchestrated by someone from his Bureau of Strategic Deception. Well, even if it wasn't directly his doing, Lin Feng was indeed part of the Bureau. At that thought, the director's lips twisted into a grin, and he actually laughed out loud. Seeing him drooling, Lin Feng stepped away in disgust. The next day, they arrived at West Sea Island. The entire area was already surrounded by the Navy. As Lin Feng, the director, and Su Qinxi set foot on the island, a large group of soldiers immediately swarmed around them. "Please come in," a tall soldier said to Lin Feng and the others while scanning the director. As Lin Feng was about to step inside, the tall soldier added, "I'm sorry, director, but you need to go through security." "Xie Dongqing." The director directly called out his name. "Director, my esteemed leader, you must understand me," Xie Dongqing said awkwardly. The director was once his superior and had taken good care of him. With no other choice, the director reluctantly extended his hands. Lin Feng, sitting nearby, chuckled and asked, "What was the director like back then?" "Hey, he was a beast, let me tell you. He had real battle merits," Xie Dongqing said, then turned to the director and ordered, "Stretch your arms out further. What are you doing?" The director had been in a good mood, but at those last words he glared. Intrigued, Lin Feng stayed put and listened to quite a bit of gossip about the director, only getting up when the director grew impatient. "You're more gossipy than a woman," the director huffed as he walked. "Just showing concern for a leader. Have you ever considered that I don't need your concern, eh?" The director said. Lin Feng paused, turned around, and said, "Then you go first." The director was left speechless, cleared his throat, and looking at the dense crowd of soldiers around them said, I might have spoken too loudly just now. The master and disciple along with a nameless bodyguard who loved playing on the computer entered the base. The director's eyes lit up. This place had originally been dedicated to producing naval fleets and the like. Now its scale had expanded many times over, and the personnel were several times what they had been before. As soon as Lin Feng arrived, people immediately came up to him. Not just one or two, but a whole crowd lining up and holding notebooks. The director didn't understand at first until he heard the first person's question. Chief Engineer Lin, is there a problem with the structure of this power system? Lin Feng took a look and began to explain at length, patiently repeating himself when the other person didn't understand. The director looked at the crowd behind, then back at Lin Feng, and couldn't help but feel a surge of respect. He was also very patient. Seeing Su Qinxi sitting on the ground, he sat down beside her. He assumed she was tackling some difficult computer problem only to find she was playing a simple game. The director watched with interest for a while, but after Su Qinxi died over and over again, he couldn't bear it anymore and said, "Is it really that hard?" "You try," Su Qinxi said, handing him the computer. "Fine, I'll do it." The director took it, and just like that he cleared the level in no time. The director smiled and said, "See, easy." Su Qinxi squinted, then lowered her head to continue playing, asking, "Am I just not talented?" "Of course not," the director said. "You've reached this level, and you say you're not talented. Everyone excels at different things." "What about him?" Su Qinxi pointed at Lin Feng. The director pondered for a moment, then said seriously, "Don't compare yourself to a monster. It's pointless. We're still human." After nearly 3 hours, Lin Feng had finished speaking after downing 3 large bottles of water. The director quickly said, "Hurry up and take me to see it." Lin Feng stood up and led him over. The models were already being constructed inside. "What's the displacement tonnage?" the director asked. "Around 1500 tons, Lin Feng said. "Double," the director exclaimed in surprise. The most advanced Ford-class aircraft carrier from the United States was only 1000 tons. Unexpectedly, Lin Feng said, "Actually, displacement can no longer measure the advancement of an aircraft carrier. Then what does? Maneuverability, speed, weapon systems, power." Lin Feng continued, "Not everything is better just because it's bigger. What about speed? By the time we sail from here to True Pig Island, they might have only sailed 12 nautical miles from the U.S. mainland." Lin Feng said with a smile. "That much of a difference?" The director was stunned. At the same time, its stealth, powerful defensive and offensive capabilities are its greatest strengths. For example, the director was practically jumping with excitement. "It can withstand the explosive power of Little Boy," Lin Feng said. The director swallowed hard. Little Boy wasn't a real little boy, it was a nuclear bomb. That was the first nuclear bomb ever deployed after its development. As for its lethality, take a look, Lin Feng said. Naturally, it was equipped with shipboard missiles, anti-aircraft weapons, fleet shipborne weapons, and air defense missiles. But what the director saw as the most striking feature on the carrier was a heavy cannon. It was positioned at the very center and had an extremely large caliber. "What is this?" the director asked. Before Lin Feng could speak, the weapons expert Qian Yongyuan rushed over, his entire demeanor brimming with excitement. As the person in charge of the carrier's weaponry, he naturally knew the power of this weapon, but he wanted to hear about it again. The reason was that he was utterly astounded. Lin Feng pressed a virtual 3D image and said to the director, "Press it." The director pressed it, and at that moment the 3D image of the carrier tilted upward. A low whoosh sounded as it charged. Then a dull thud echoed, and a shell shot into the sky. The next moment it flew toward the simulated True Pig Island. A second later the director nearly fell to his knees, because the expanse of sea before him no longer held any island. One shell, one island. The director's mind was reeling with shock. With this thing, couldn't you blow an enemy carrier to pieces with a single shot? "Can it really be done?" the director asked. Lin Feng smiled, not taking offense, but Qian Yongyuan exclaimed excitedly, "I've run over 3,000 simulations. Using Chief Engineer Lin's hypersonic railgun principle, these shells can achieve explosive power at the dust level." And as the director listened, he was practically drooling again. He definitely didn't understand any of it. But what you don't understand is what's truly awesome. An hour later, the director followed behind Lin Feng like a fool ready to leave. "Little apprentice, when can this big beast be built?" the director asked. 100 days. "All right, 100 days is bearable. Even if it took longer, it's no." "What?" The director paused, then looked at Lin Feng with disbelief. 100 days. Did he know that developing an aircraft carrier wasn't like cooking a meal? In the past, even making a model might take 100 days. "Then, what about your celestial sword?" the director asked weakly. 180 days, Lin Feng said as the three of them passed a guard post. Hearing this, the director's legs went weak. Xie Dongqing quickly steadied him and asked, "Old leader, are you all right?" I'm fine," the director said, forcing a laugh. After they left, Xie Dongqing watched the director's retreating figure and said emotionally to the soldier beside him, "Look, our old leader used to be in such good shape. Now he gets weak in the knees after just a few steps. It's a lack of discipline after all. Let Let this be a warning, comrades. Yes, sir. As both bases entered normal operation, Lin Feng and the director received news from Chen Haidong. The production line for the fake sixth-generation fighter jets was ready. The director subsequently accepted another interview from Donghai Television. After the invitation was extended, a promotional video arrived. For over a month, discussions about space-based weapons had been raging on Weibo and major forums. Lin Feng had become even more of a hot topic. Some described him as the military district's young heartthrob, well-connected but lacking real ability. After all, his background information seemed too fabricated, and coupled with his dates with Zhu Ting, his public favorability was rapidly declining. Yet this only made more people recognize and follow Lin Feng. He made no effort to change this. Firstly, because he didn't care, and secondly, because it was part of the plan. This man is McLean. Zhu Ting has been with him these past few days, the director said, handing Lin Feng a set of photos. Lin Feng glanced at them and asked, "Have you checked him out? His background is clean." "That's as good as saying nothing," Lin Feng remarked. "Even a ghost wouldn't believe that." The director smiled and said, "Don't worry, we already have someone watching him." Talking and laughing, the director guided Lin Feng into the Donghai television station. Meanwhile, at the National Security Bureau, Chen Haidong officially announced the star-shattering plan has begun. "We are delighted to welcome Mr. Lin Feng. Welcome." Zhu Ting looked at Lin Feng with eyes full of affection. As a spy who had disguised herself for years, this was all professional. "Why didn't the director come today?" Zhu Ting asked. "He has a cold today," Lin Feng said. "You know, with age a few ailments are inevitable." Zhu Ting dared not respond, thinking to herself how powerful Lin Feng's backing must be for him to speak of his leader so casually. Watching the live broadcast outside, the director chuckled softly and muttered, "That little rascal." Previously, the director mentioned that our country has a general concept for space-based weapons, which signifies a qualitative leap in our space domain. Zhu Ting began the interview. "Yes," Lin Feng nodded. Zhu Ting's eyes were filled with scorn. She thought that even her great United States hadn't developed space-based weapons, so how could China possibly do so? Ultimately, it's just to cover up the sixth-generation fighter jets. Zhu Ting's disdain flickered briefly before she continued, "So what do you think of our naval strength?" Lin Feng's face showed hesitation. "It's fine, you're from a naval background, speak freely," Zhu Ting urged. "It's tough." Lin Feng sighed, though inwardly he was delighted. He was just waiting for her to ask. Many countries developed 1,000-ton displacement aircraft carriers 10 or 20 years ago, but our country, despite having carriers, is just starting out. Our carriers are still refitted from what others discarded. As he spoke, Zhu Ting noticed Lin Feng's subtle action. Clenching his fist. She didn't dwell on it. Lin Feng was only 19, likely not cunning, so this must be genuine. Our country's current capability might manage around 8 tons, and funding is insufficient, Lin Feng said. Can I interpret that as us already developing 8-ton carriers? Zhu Ting asked eagerly. If she could obtain intelligence on both space-based weapons and aircraft carriers, she would surely advance further. This? Lin Feng's expression shifted subtly, perfectly timed. Of course not. At that moment, Zhu Ting was overjoyed. He's just a young man, can't even fake his expression. 8 tons. Funding shortage. These were the keywords. It meant the economic blockade was still effective. Zhu Ting adeptly changed the subject, resuming light-hearted conversation. But outside, the public exploded. Damn, is Lin Feng an idiot? Deliberately leaking information. Still too young. Even I, a bystander, can tell Lin Feng is lying. The director's judgment this time is off. He shouldn't be on stage again. For a moment, the audience erupted in fierce criticism and anger. They labeled Lin Feng a leaker and even demanded severe punishment. However, after the interview, Lin Feng treated Zhu Ting to a meal at the most prestigious hotel in Donghai. He thoughtfully pulled out a chair for her. Zhu Ting looked around and said, "This place isn't accessible to just anyone. My father has a black card here." Lin Feng smiled. He snapped his fingers, and the manager hurried over. After ordering simply, Zhu Ting continued, "I couldn't find you these days. Where have you been?" "This?" Lin Feng hesitated. "Am I not supposed to ask?" Zhu Ting quickly said, cleverly retreating to advance. "It's indeed classified," Lin Feng said. Zhu Ting smiled, then her expression turned serious as she gazed at him deeply. "Lin Feng, you should feel. Wait a little longer, okay? But during the days you were gone, I missed you so much and feared you might be with other women." Zhu Ting's voice trembled with tears. "How could that be?" Lin Feng acted anxious, standing up to hand her tissues. "I need to deal with the arranged meetings my father set up." Zhu Ting immediately burst into tears. If Lin Feng hadn't known she was a spy, he might have believed her. Her acting was worthy of an Oscar. Deep in their love, they naturally began drinking. As Lin Feng drank, his face flushed, and he started rambling. "Zhu Ting, I missed you so much in Xinchuan too, but I couldn't come out. The moment I returned to Donghai, I couldn't wait to see you. Wait for me, I will be with you." Zhu Ting pretended to be drunk, but silently noted everything. When Lin Feng collapsed onto the table, she stealthily got up and sent a text to Maclean, Xinchuan City. All of this was under the surveillance of the director and Chen Haidong. The latter watched Lin Feng and remarked, "Your apprentice truly surpasses you." The director smiled and said, "We're old, though it's time for the younger generation to take over." Chen Haidong also smiled but told his assistant, "Have the people there prepared, the bait is about to bite." Yes, the assistant nodded and left. The director asked, "What about McLean and Zhu Ting?" "Leave them for now," Chen Haidong said, watching the screen with a grin. The purpose of a chess piece is to squeeze out every bit of its value. The next day, as Lin Feng stepped out of the hotel, the director sent a car to pick him up. "How was it?" "Enjoyable." The director raised an eyebrow, his tone laden with implication. "I'm quite interested in beautiful women, but not that kind of woman." Lin Feng smiled, faintly tossing a packet of medicine to the director. "Chen Haidong gave it to me. Whoever takes it will believe they've done the deed." "Ha ha." The director laughed heartily, his admiration for Lin Feng growing. There were no surveillance cameras in the hotel, yet Lin Feng remained unswayed by temptation. Setting everything else aside, Zhu Ting was indeed a beauty, otherwise she wouldn't have secured a position at Donghai Television. Such a station demanded exceptionally high standards of appearance. "Has it started over there?" "It has," the director replied. "Do you think they'll actually make a move?" Lin Feng asked. Taking action in a foreign land was hard to fathom. "They will," the director said indignantly. "Because this isn't the first time they've done such a thing." "Well done." McLean beamed at Zhu Ting. "Is it enough?" Zhu Ting asked. "Enough," McLean nodded. "Don't underestimate our nation's power. Once the city is confirmed, we can pinpoint the exact location immediately." As he spoke, McLean couldn't hide his smugness. Zhu Ting pressed further, "And what about my?" Deep down, she was fraught with anxiety. Because once the production line of the 6th-generation fighter jet was sabotaged, Huaxiao would inevitably launch an investigation. With the full force of a nation, it wouldn't be hard to trace it back to Lin Feng. "Rest assured, on the day of the operation, that's when we'll return to our homeland together," McLean assured her. "Once we're back in our country, you'll be absolutely safe." Though Zhu Ting was anxious, she understood. If she left abruptly now, it might jeopardize the entire sabotage plan. Moreover, she had unwavering faith in McLean's last remark. Her nation was the superpower of this blue planet, and no one could stand against it. The Starfall operation wouldn't conclude so quickly. Lin Feng's core focus remained on the space-based weapons and the aircraft carrier. Occasionally, Lin Feng heard that Qinchuan City was already in turmoil. On the 5th day, Yang called and asked Lin Feng to come over. When Lin Feng arrived, he saw that the work had officially begun. "Hit a snag?" Lin Feng asked. Yang looked troubled as he faced Lin Feng. "Come inside and talk." Entering, Lin Feng saw Zhou Liming there too, along with another scientist whose name and specialty Lin Feng recalled: Dong Hua, mechanical parts expert. "Have a seat." Lin Feng sensed their low spirits and inquired, "Is it a technical issue?" Yang glanced at Dong Hua, who then spoke, "Chief Designer Lin, it's like this. Take this component of the space cannon, for instance. According to the blueprints and technical requirements, it must achieve a tolerance of 0.01 micrometers." Lin Feng nodded. Indeed, one must not underestimate such tolerances. A slight deviation could lead to catastrophic failure. Dong Hua continued, "This process requires a 5-axis CNC machine tool for production. Currently, our country, we don't have it." Lin Feng paused. 5-axis technology is ultra-high precision CNC machining. Although we've researched it and have similar models, frankly, these parts require us to purchase it. "How much?" $100 million US, Dong Hua said. Lin Feng frowned. "Just this one item cost 800 million. He pondered, "They probably won't sell it." "Exactly," Dong Hua confirmed. "This equipment is only available in Country D." Lin Feng fell into thought, then asked Zhou Liming beside him, "Can our domestically produced CNC machines handle it?" "Barely, but in a space environment, the consequences are unpredictable." Zhou Liming understood why Lin Feng was asking him. "They'll handle this matter," Lin Feng said. "For now, skip this part." "All right," the three nodded. After Zhou Liming and Dong Hua left, Yang said to Lin Feng, "Actually, it's not just this. There's more. Yes, some raw materials are extremely scarce." Yang handed Lin Feng a list. Lin Feng exhaled. Indeed, they were not only under technological blockade, but also facing economic sanctions. However, Lin Feng was well aware. In today's world, globalized economies were irreversible. Many things could be developed domestically, but the time and cost outweighed the benefits. Lin Feng also found the 5-axis machine tool in the system, but it cost a staggering 5,000 points. Far too expensive for him at the moment. After all, spending another 5,000 points could buy another superweapon blueprint. And Lin Feng's current philosophy was, if the world already had it, buy it. Points were hard to come by. These outdated technologies weren't worth his precious points. So as he walked out the door, Lin Feng immediately said to Su Chenxi, "Book me a plane ticket." "Where to?" Yinjing, Lin Feng replied. On board the plane, Lin Feng realized it was a private jet accompanied by an identical one flying alongside. "Isn't this a bit over the top?" Lin Feng remarked. Su Chenxi said nothing, still focused on her little game. After landing, Lin Feng got into a private car headed straight for the State Council. Upon alighting, Lin Feng saw Zhou Chuanmin, who had come personally to greet him. The proposals you made are still under discussion. Changing everything won't happen overnight. I'm not here about that this time, Lin Feng said, gradually explaining the situation. After hearing him out, Zhou Quanmin frowned and asked, "What's your suggestion?" Lin Feng replied, "I wonder if you could contact Country D." Contact is possible, Zhou Quanmin said, but the cost might be significant. He glanced at the list again, his brow deeply furrowed. At that moment, Lin Feng smiled. Zhou Quanmin paused and asked, "Do you have an idea?" Over the years, many of our technologies have been coveted by other nations and regarded as secrets. Lin Feng began. Using those as bargaining chips would be too costly. Once they're gone, we'll have no chance to recover, Zhou Quanmin said gravely. At that moment, he wondered if Lin Feng was being too hasty. Unexpectedly, Lin Feng said, "Think about it. If the Heaven Sword is realized, wouldn't technologies like our satellite and Beidou systems become obsolete?" Zhou Quanmin paused, then a light dawned on him. He smiled and said, "You mean?" "There's nothing wrong with trading away outdated things," Lin Feng explained. "Now being backward doesn't mean being beaten, it means selling them off." Zhou Quanmin finished with a smile, completing Lin Feng's thought. "Moreover, we can conduct trade not just with one country, but with many nations." Lin Feng revealed a cunning smile and said, "Now that old Mike seems keen on blockading us, let's see if his little minions can resist such temptation." Zhou Quanmin suddenly saw the light as well. It is difficult to develop while standing aloof from the world. Since the situation had already taken shape, they would have to rely on themselves to break the deadlock. "Of course, we shouldn't sell favors. We should extort where necessary," Lin Feng stated. Zhou Chuanmin, however, retorted, "That's not the right way to put it. We maintain friendly relations with all countries around the world." "Comrade Lin Feng, your ideological awareness still needs improvement." Lin Feng paused, then burst into hearty laughter. As Lin Feng departed, Dong Hua arrived in Yanjing. He would serve as the technical expert for the upcoming negotiation and trade deal with Country D. Simultaneously, China submitted visit requests to over 8 nations, causing a global uproar as 8 delegations set off for 8 countries. Upon returning to Donghai City, Lin Feng received news from the National Security Bureau. A dramatic scene was unfolding in Qinchuan City. Led by McLean, the spies of the Starlink project gathered, having confirmed that the production line for the 6th-generation fighter jets was located at the spot marked on their map. They were quite alert to choose this location, McLean said with a dismissive sneer. The facility was built deep beneath a mountain, and they would never have discovered it without a stroke of luck. Of course, that stroke of luck was far too convenient. What should they do next, a spy asked. Establishing a complete production line will take at least 2 years. We don't need to destroy it entirely, just sabotage the core technical workshops. McLean spoke rapidly. They'll have the domestic satellite system assist us. And weapons. McLean waved his hand, and sets of special forces equipment were brought in. The next day, as Lin Feng was just getting up, Su Chenxi, who was playing a game, tossed a newspaper to him. Lin Feng caught it while remarking, "You're really bad, yet you love playing." Su Chenxi ignored him. Lin Feng glanced at the newspaper. It reported that according to a newspaper from Country D, China and Country D had reached a deal to cooperate on CNC machine tools and satellite technology, facilitating an investment project worth 300 billion yuan. Siemens would establish production in China to help develop multiple machine tools. Lin Feng chuckled upon seeing this. Country D really couldn't wait. Su Chenxi for once put down her computer and said, "I'm quite puzzled." "You mean why Country D announced it?" Simple. First, to avoid offending the US. Second, to make a statement." "What statement?" Lin Feng took out his phone and handed it to Su Chenxi. Su Chenxi saw that foreign media were filled with headlines claiming that China, unable to withstand the technological blockade, was desperately seeking solutions, even willing to trade technologies like satellites and high-speed rail as bargaining chips. Lin Feng burst into laughter. "I bet old Mike and his people are even more amused now." Su Chenxi, losing interest in the topic, sat back down and resumed playing her little game. Meanwhile, across the Pacific Ocean in the Black House of the United States, an elderly Caucasian man sat at his desk. His position there spoke for itself. Smith Prang, the leader of the U.S., the sole superpower on the planet. There was another person in the office. Lansport, the Secretary of State. He had come specifically regarding the deal between Country D and China. "Should we stop them?" Lansport asked. Smith Prang remained silent for a long time, staring at the report. "Do you think we should intervene?" Smith Prang inquired. "Absolutely," Lansport replied. "Our Asia-Pacific containment strategy is a top priority this year. Country D's move is a clear affront to us." Smith Prang asked instead, "Do you think these 2 technologies are valuable to China?" "Of course." Lansport said, "These are currently world-leading technologies for China, practically their ace in the hole. Although Country D isn't getting the full suite, it's expensive, but certainly worth it." "Exactly," Smith Prang smiled. "China has always been smug about these technologies, treating them as treasures. This time they're truly cutting off a piece of their flesh. So what's your take?" "If Country D doesn't get this juicy morsel, they'll throw a tantrum," Smith Prang said. Prang continued, As a Chinese saying goes, a cornered dog will jump over the wall. Driving China into a corner is one thing. Moreover, once technology is sold, it's gone. Lansport suddenly understood. You mean it's time to bleed China dry? Of course, Smith-Prang smiled. I believe many countries are now eyeing this fat piece of meat. As long as we loosen the reins, China will keep selling off its advanced technologies to survive. By the time they realize they've sold everything, that will be their day of doom. Smith-Prang's grin widened. In Country D, a world leader in high-end manufacturing with extremely advanced CNC machine tools, the sudden visit from the Chinese delegation had surprised them. When they learned that China wanted 5-axis CNC machine tools, they refused outright. Later, they tentatively discovered that China's bottom line was surprisingly low, willing to exchange satellite technology for 5-axis machine tool technology. They felt as if they were dreaming. The day after the deal was struck, they immediately published the news. First, to celebrate. Second, to show the world how foolish China was. Third, to test the U.S. reaction. Now they awaited Washington's response. After a full 16 hours under the watchful eyes of several Country D officials, a document arrived swiftly. It bore a single English word: agreed. In that instant, the Country D officials were ecstatic. They believed they had struck a tremendous bargain. The Chinese are so stupid to sell such technology. While they were desperate, otherwise it wouldn't have come to us. I hear they're negotiating with many other countries. We should push for more technology and drain China dry. Agreed. They chatted and laughed. But the louder they laughed now, the louder they would wail later. You wouldn't happen to be behind this deal too, would you? The director said, pointing at Lin Feng with the newspaper in hand. Lin Feng smiled and asked, who do you think profited from it? You're everywhere, aren't you? The director remarked in surprise. Having heard earlier that Lin Feng had made a trip to Yinjing, he knew something was amiss, but he hadn't expected Lin Feng to be involved. After a moment of thought, he said, we must have lost out. He added, in terms of technology, how can machine tool technology compare to satellite tech? Lin Feng chuckled. That's where you're wrong. How so? The director asked. Our two current major projects, along with future ones, all require high-precision machine tool technology. This kind of thing is essentially a tool, Lin Feng explained. You understand the importance of tools, Lin Feng continued. With this, we can build even more advanced satellites, high-speed trains, and so on. Don't forget the tech behind space-based weapons can be applied to other projects. The director suddenly understood. Just then Lin Feng asked, what brings you to the Strategic Deception Bureau today, eh? This is my turf, so of course I'm back to work, the director said without shame. Bullshit, Lin Feng retorted. You're so unreliable, coming here maybe once a month at best. The director gave a dry laugh. Alright, the truth is Donghai TV invited me on the show again, and I agreed. What's the topic this time? Lin Feng asked. Naturally, it's about the deal with Country D. You should go meet your old flame too. The Starfall project is nearing its end, so keep her steady. The director said. Fine. Lin Feng replied while biting into an apple. How do you plan to evaluate this deal? The director answered without hesitation, obviously it's a huge loss. That evening, Donghai TV invited Lin Feng to the show as promised. The director didn't show up again. Everyone knew the director was too cunning, his words could no longer be trusted. In contrast, while the domestic audience might dislike the honest Lin Feng, spies and public intellectuals adored him to no end. Basically, they believed everything Lin Feng said. After all, Lin Feng looked so innocent. On the show, Lin Feng dressed in a suit infuriated netizens. The Strategic Deception Bureau is done for. Do you think this is part of the plan? Are you an idiot? Lin Feng is clearly a well-connected nepotism kid. The netizens bickered like a chaotic marketplace. But Lin Feng didn't mind. He even gazed affectionately at Zhu Ting on TV. Zhu Ting returned his gaze with equal affection, though inwardly, she was utterly disgusted. Admittedly, Lin Feng was handsome. But Zhu Ting only liked Americans. Hello, Mr. Lin Feng. Hello. Lin Feng's eyes were as gentle as spring water. After a brief exchange on international affairs, the show's latter half cut straight to the point. Mr. Lin Feng, you must have heard about the recent technology deal between Country D and our country. As she spoke, a hint of mockery flickered in Zhu Ting's eyes. Honestly, she thought this country was too foolish. How could they sell such crucial satellite technology? It's just a normal transaction, Lin Feng said with a smile. Technology exchanges are common, and this shows our country is preparing to break through blockades. It's a very positive move. Could there be any inside story? Zhu Ting pressed. Inside story? Lin Feng pondered for a moment. How could there be an inside story? Could it be that we're struggling in some areas? Zhu Ting continued her probing. Absolutely not. Lin Feng quickly responded, but his expression turned uneasy. The country is functioning normally and thriving. Hearing Lin Feng's words, Zhu Ting was ecstatic inside, while netizens were deeply dismayed. This time they didn't attack Lin Feng. Though everyone saw through his clumsy acting, they got the answer they wanted. Folks, the nation is at a critical and perilous moment. Lin Feng may sound foolish, but what he said earlier was right. We need to work hard and stop prioritizing entertainment. Suddenly, a wave of fervent discussion arose. Regarding the country's deal, people felt both anguish and regret, but mostly worry. The show was nearing its end. Zhu Ting stood up and said, "That's all for today's program. Thank you, Mr. Lin Feng, for joining us." Lin Feng gave a faint smile. Once the cameras were off, Lin Feng dropped his act and asked, "Dinner tonight?" His tone carried a hint of eagerness. A man's eagerness. Zhu Ting paused briefly before replying, "Sure, wait a moment while I remove my makeup." Lin Feng smiled, watching her leave until her figure vanished around the corner. Just then, both Lin Feng's and Zhu Ting's phones rang. Lin Feng answered. It was Chun Haidong. "How's it going?" Lin Feng asked. "Whack-a-mole tonight," Chun Haidong said. Lin Feng chuckled. "I was just about to have dinner with the mole." "The State Security Bureau's meal is just as good," Chun Haidong replied. "You're not asking me to make the arrest, are you?" Lin Feng said. "I'm just an ordinary person." Chun Haidong laughed heartily. "Just go. You may be ordinary, but Su Chinsi isn't." With that, he hung up. In the corner, Zhu Ting overheard a single phrase from the other end. "Operation tonight." Hearing this, she trembled with excitement. Those words meant her mission was over. She could finally return to her country. Qinchuan City. In a desolate expanse of mountains, all was pitch black. There was no moon that night, and the sky was heavy with dark clouds threatening a downpour. It should have been a night for sound sleep, yet some remained sleepless. McLean stood with a companion on a distant mountain. Through night vision goggles, he could clearly see the mountains far away. The bad weather made it the perfect time to strike. McLean had already planned the sabotage operation from 3 directions. Most spies involved in the Starlink project had undergone Special Forces training. Equipped with world-leading Special Forces gear, they could breach the production base in no time. After days of observation, they had fully mapped out the guards and shift changes. Commander McLean, "We're ready." McLean checked his watch and said, "Wait a little longer." "Yes, sir." "Remember, you only have 15 minutes, McLean warned. A kilometer away lay a military base. If reinforcements arrived, none of them would escape. Yet it was precisely this layout that convinced McLean this was the production base for the 6th-generation fighter. As the minute hand struck 000, McLean immediately ordered, "Move out." "Yes, moving out," came the reply, followed by the line going dead. McLean felt droplets land on his body. He looked up at the sky and let out a slow laugh. "The weather's turning. It's raining." "Yes, moving out," came the reply, followed by the line going dead. McLean felt droplets land on his body. He looked up at the sky and let out a slow laugh. "The weather's turning. It's raining." The rain poured down in torrents. Under the cover of night, hundreds of figures clad in Special Forces uniforms marched through the darkness. They carried not only advanced equipment, but also explosives. They communicated solely through hand gestures. The leading American soldier raised his hand, then sharply lowered it. In response, the entire combat unit advanced toward the mountain in perfect order. 2 kilometers away, outside a remote mountain farmhouse, a middle-aged couple lay asleep. Suddenly, the farmer's wife murmured, "Old man, do you hear someone outside?" The farm wife was panic-stricken. It was the dead of night. The farmer also caught the sound of footsteps. He fixed his gaze on the door like a hunter. Thump, thump. A knock came at the door. The farmer sprang up in 2 strides, snatched a broom from the corner, and demanded, "Who's there?" His voice was thick with caution. At this hour, could it be bandits or robbers? To his surprise, a firm yet reassuring voice came from outside. "Don't be afraid, uncle. We are soldiers of the Chinese People's Liberation Army." Hearing this, the farmer remained on guard until the man continued, "You don't need to open the door. I'm here to tell you that there may be explosions in the distance later. Please don't be alarmed." The farm wife grew anxious and asked, "Will there be any danger?" The soldier replied, "No, there won't. Please rest assured." "What's going on?" the farmer asked, curious. The Chinese soldier gazed into the distance and said, "Nothing serious. Just a military exercise." From 3 directions, squads of soldiers advanced swiftly and methodically toward the production line. But soon they sensed something was amiss. They encountered no resistance and easily entered the so-called production facility. Inside, they did find machinery, but these machines. From the 1960s? The leading soldier quickly realized something was wrong. He reached for his communicator to inform McLean. But he suddenly discovered that the communicator had no signal. "Retreat," he shouted. Regardless of anything else, withdrawal was the top priority. As a veteran of many operations, his instincts told him this place was perilous. Yet the moment they turned, blinding lights blazed to life. They froze, finding themselves surrounded by a dense array of gun muzzles and people. "We are soldiers of the Chinese People's Liberation Army. You are surrounded. Drop your weapons and surrender immediately." The lead officer's expression was cold, but his voice brimmed with unwavering confidence. Without a second thought, the American soldier raised his gun. Bang! As the gunshot rang out, it signaled the official start of the battle. In the distance, McLean heard the gunfire and smiled faintly. Based on his assessment of the forces, the outcome was beyond doubt. He turned to leave. This place was far too dangerous. McLean had come here in secret solely to complete his mission. As for the spies involved in the Starlink project, they were none of his concern. In his eyes, those people weren't worth much. He headed down the mountain, glancing at the plane ticket in his hand. The flight would depart in just 3 hours. He fantasized about the accolades awaiting him upon his return. Smiling at the thought, he walked on. But then he caught an odd sound. He spun around sharply and demanded, "Who's there?" The night air was still no sound. But then a stray cat leaped out. McLean and his assistant lowered their guns nervously, cold sweat beading on their brows. They hurried down the mountain. Just then a powerful beam of light blazed toward them. In his shock, McLean heard a voice ring out, "We are soldiers of the Chinese People's Liberation Army." At those words, McLean understood everything. He fumbled for his phone, panic flooding his mind. It had failed. The entire plan had failed. How could it have failed? But the next second a gunshot cracked through the air. He felt a searing pain in his hand. Looking up, he spotted a smoking gun barrel protruding from the grass on a distant hillside. A sniper. McLean realized with a jolt that this was no impromptu encirclement. It was a meticulously premeditated operation. These Chinese had been waiting for them. There was never any sixth-generation fighter jet was there. McLean roared in fury. The lead agent from the National Security Bureau didn't answer his question. Instead, he declared, "Mr. McLean, you are under arrest." Hearing this, McLean tried to raise his gun, but another shot rang out. McLean's other hand, the one gripping the weapon, was also struck, crimson liquid spilling forth. "Don't you understand yet?" The National Security agent said, "Zhu Ting is one of us." "Impossible. It's impossible." McLean howled, wild with rage. "That bitch. Zhu Ting, you bitch." In the luxurious private room, Lin Feng and Zhu Ting were chatting and laughing over a sumptuous dinner spread across the table. "We've ordered too much. What a waste," Zhu Ting remarked. Lin Feng wanted to say that this might be her last meal, so she deserved a good one. But instead he said, "It's nothing. This is trivial. The hotel staff wouldn't dare charge me anyway." Zhu Ting smiled. She was eager to leave, but after a moment's thought she asked, "Who exactly is your father?" "This." Lin Feng hesitated. "You don't have to tell me," Zhu Ting said. "You'll find out in time," Lin Feng replied. Zhu Ting smiled, glanced at her watch, and said, "It's very late. I should be going. Tonight, I was hoping." "Sorry, Lin Feng. I'm really tired." "All right then." Lin Feng didn't insist. He smiled, stood up, and said, "Let me walk you out." "No need. We'll take a taxi." "I'm sorry. It's fine." Lin Feng rose and said, "We'll meet again." He watched her get into the taxi, standing in the distance under an umbrella. From the cab, Zhu Ting caught sight of this and smiled to herself. Once the car turned the corner, Zhu Ting immediately said to the driver, "Sir, change the route. Head to the airport." "Miss, where are you going at this hour?" the driver asked with a smile. "Back to my country," Zhu Ting replied. "You're not Chinese," the driver said in surprise. "Your Mandarin sounds very standard." Zhu Ting said nothing. She just watched in the rearview mirror as Lin Feng still stood there holding his umbrella. She smirked and muttered, "Fool." The driver was baffled and murmured, "Why are you cursing people?" Meanwhile, Lin Feng smiled in the dark, rainy night. Suddenly, a sports car screeched to a halt in front of him. The driver was Su Chenxi. "Where did you get this?" Lin Feng asked in surprise. "A slower car might lose them," Su Chenxi said flatly. "Can I drive?" Lin Feng asked eagerly. "I'm afraid he'll throw up if you do," Su Chenxi replied with utter seriousness. "That old man, the bureau chief." Lin Feng got into the car fuming. In the next second, Su Chenxi floored the accelerator, speeding straight ahead. At Donghai International Airport, despite the late hour, the terminal still bustled with crowds. Arriving here, Zhu Ting felt a measure of relief. In half an hour, she would board the plane, and the rest of her life would unfold as she had always dreamed. Lost in her fantasies, she smiled to herself. Suddenly, a voice called out from behind. Zhu Ting turned with a hint of displeasure, assuming yet another oblivious fan had recognized her. Yet as she turned, Zhu Ting froze in astonishment. Lin Feng," she exclaimed, shocked, even doubting her own eyes. "What a coincidence," Lin Feng said with a knowing smile. "Didn't you say you were tired and wanted to rest?" "Did the TV station suddenly assign you another business trip?" Lin Feng remarked. "Exactly, I hate those bosses so much." Zhu Ting quickly nodded. "Haha, they're all the same." "I know the feeling," Lin Feng said with a feigned frown. "They suddenly gave me a task too." "What task?" "Can't say," Lin Feng replied with an awkward smile. "Oh, I forgot you're in the military region." Zhu Ting yearned to escape Lin Feng's presence, but she couldn't leave abruptly without arousing suspicion. Her gaze then swept to Su Chenxi beside Lin Feng, a flicker of curiosity in her eyes. Su Chenxi had a refreshing appearance, her beauty undeniable, yet she hadn't spared Zhu Ting a single glance since arriving. "Who is she?" "Oh." Lin Feng thought for a moment, then said, "Just a little follower, don't mind her." Su Chenxi paid no heed to his words, absorbed in a mobile game. The three of them found a place to sit, and Lin Feng continued to ramble. Suddenly, Zhu Ting stood up. "I need to board now." "You're going to America?" Lin Feng glanced at the departure board. "What a coincidence, so am I." "You?" Zhu Ting faltered, wondering why Lin Feng was heading to America. Lin Feng, however, took the initiative to pick up her luggage. "We must be on the same flight. Follow me, I'll take you through the special passage." "No, that's not necessary. It's fine." Lin Feng approached the airport staff, and with his back to Zhu Ting, he flashed a badge. "Military heading to America." The security personnel immediately waved them through. Lin Feng turned and beckoned. At that moment, Zhu Ting finally felt a sense of relief. As the three entered the special passage, Zhu Ting began to feel uneasy. I don't think this is the way to the boarding gates. You have a good sense of direction, Lin Feng said. A bit. Zhu Ting laughed nervously, then suddenly realized this isn't the way to the gates. Of course not, Lin Feng replied. Then, Lin Feng stopped messing around. I really have a business trip. Zhu Ting was panicking, but tried to suppress it. Lin Feng, however, said, so eager to get to America. Can't it wait until tomorrow? Stop it. Zhu Ting insisted, a hint of anger creeping in. I really do have work. Your work is to report to your American masters, isn't it? Lin Feng said with a sly grin. Zhu Ting was dumbfounded, then her head snapped up. Her mind raced for a full 2 seconds before she forced a smile. What are you talking about? Lin Feng, however, pulled out a document. You were a top student in China, your scholarships were state-funded. In university, you went abroad. But in just 4 years, you became a spy. At the word spy, Zhu Ting's last shred of illusion shattered. She swung her hand with incredible speed. She wasn't a special forces soldier, but she had undergone training. Yet before her hand could reach Lin Feng, it felt as though it had struck a steel plate. She looked up and realized it wasn't a steel plate, but a hand even fairer than her own. And the person who had intervened was Su Chenxi. Be polite, Su Chenxi said, one hand still on her laptop, while the other blocked Zhu Ting. Let the man finish speaking. You? Zhu Ting stared at Lin Feng. She finally understood that none of this was a coincidence. She had been exposed, and thoroughly so. I want to ask you, has your conscience been devoured by dogs? Lin Feng said. Lin Feng. Zhu Ting's voice trembled. For the sake of what we shared, can you? Shared? Lin Feng laughed. Sorry, I have no interest in a slut. That night you were just drugged and blacked out. You? Zhu Ting was so enraged that she gritted her teeth. Don't you want to know how you were exposed? Lin Feng asked. At this, Zhu Ting's interest was piqued. She looked at Lin Feng expectantly. She was puzzled. She believed she had done everything flawlessly. Just then Lin Feng said with a smile, it was McLean. He betrayed you. No, impossible. Zhu Ting nearly broke down the moment the words left his mouth. Her eyes were bloodshot, and her psychological defenses crumbled. But in the next second, she swung her hand again. She planned to seize Lin Feng as a hostage while Su Chenxi was off guard. Lin Feng sensed her movement, but didn't budge. The next moment a loud thud rang out, and Zhu Ting was sent flying several meters away. Zhu Ting clutched her stomach in agony, while Lin Feng glanced at Su Chenxi in surprise. This woman was indeed formidable in combat. After a moment of slight astonishment, Lin Feng approached Zhu Ting, who lay on the ground vomiting black blood. He said slowly, Zhu Ting. Zhu Ting looked up with hatred. You can choose not to love your country, but you must not harm it. As he spoke, Lin Feng stepped on her face, pressing her against the wall. His voice dropped to near freezing. This country has never owed you anything. Remember that. With those words, he delivered another vicious kick. 10 minutes later, Lin Feng walked ahead, while Su Chenxi followed behind, one hand on her laptop and the other carrying Zhu Ting like a limp chicken. By the roadside, Director Zhu and his team from the National Security Agency awaited them. Your shoes are dirty, Director Zhu remarked. I used a little personal justice. Lin Feng said expressionlessly. Director Zhu smiled, but Zhu Ting, upon seeing him, suddenly understood. None of this was as Lin Feng had claimed. But how exactly had she been exposed? She didn't understand, not at all. Unfortunately, neither Lin Feng nor Director Zhu would explain. With a wave of their hands, she was thrown into a car by the NSA agents. Smoke. Director Zhu offered him a cigarette. Lin Feng nodded. He usually didn't smoke, but today he was indeed in good spirits. The old man and the young man crouched by the roadside. Lin Feng suddenly asked, how's Project Stardust going? Director Zhu stubbed out his cigarette and tossed it on the ground. Not a single one who shouldn't leave will get away. With that, Director Zhu laughed, but a faint voice came from beside them. Littering is not good. Director Zhu paused, then coughed dryly. Ah, Xiao Su, it's nothing. The cleaning ladies come every day. Lin Feng, however, chuckled. Pick it up. She's really tough, and I'm definitely not helping you, because I can't beat her either. Yinjing. Report. Come in. Chen Haidong looked up. By his usual habit, he would have been asleep by now. Yet on this deep night, he still had to wait. Wait for a result. How is it? Operation Stardust was a success. We have arrested over 2,000 spies. Over how many? 2,001. The assistant replied with great seriousness. Hearing this, Chen Haidong laughed outright, though he still grumbled. Next time, skip the official jargon and just give me the number. Let's be practical. I wanted to give you a little more joy, the assistant said. Chen Haidong let out a hearty laugh. It was indeed exhilarating. Catching 2,001 in one fell swoop. The assistant added, this has stirred up quite a commotion. Should we notify the media? Why? To suppress the news. Are you insane? We made the arrests openly and lawfully. Why would we suppress the news? Chen Haidong said. Right. That makes sense. The assistant came to his senses. Not only will we not suppress it, we will hold a press conference. Make the arrangements, Chen Haidong ordered. What should the script say? The assistant asked. You? Chun Haidong pondered, then said with great seriousness, "After a night of arduous operations, we apprehended over 2,000 spies." Hearing this, the assistant burst into laughter. "What's so funny?" Chun Haidong frowned. "Nothing." The assistant quickly said, "I was just thinking it truly was an arduous operation for us." Arduous, my foot. This was like catching chickens in a coop. Get on with it. Chun Haidong waved his hand. The assistant snapped to attention with a military salute before scurrying off. Chun Haidong glanced at the report and murmured, "Lin Feng, what other surprises do you have in store for me?" "It's time I gave you a surprise of my own." The next day, when Lin Feng woke up, his foot was in great pain. "Ouch, it hurts." Lin Feng looked at Su Chenxi, his face full of agony. "You're a man, you shouldn't be afraid of this," Su Chenxi said as she applied medicine to his foot. "Men are human too," Lin Feng retorted. "Oh." Su Chenxi put away the medicine bottle. Lin Feng rubbed his foot and said, "I should have gone easier yesterday. I was too caught up in my own enjoyment." Su Chenxi rolled her eyes. One particular detail was, when Zhu Ting was dragged out, her face was bruised and swollen, barely recognizable. "Do you enjoy hitting women?" "Huh." Lin Feng paused, sensing Su Chenxi's disapproving gaze. "I'm not some brute, why would I enjoy hitting women?" As he finished speaking, Lin Feng's phone rang. It was from the base. "All right, I'll be right there." Lin Feng hung up quickly, threw on his clothes, and hobbled out the door. Watching him from behind, Su Chenxi couldn't help but crack a slight smile. But the moment Lin Feng turned around, she instantly suppressed it. "What are you waiting for? Hurry up. My foot is injured, you don't expect me to drive, do you?" Lin Feng yelled. Su Chenxi twisted her lips and quickly strode out after him. As Lin Feng headed to the West Sea Island base, Yanjing was in an uproar. The gun battle in Qinchuan City from the previous day had been leaked, causing a massive stir. Today, news broke that the National Security Bureau had taken responsibility for the incident. This immediately captured the attention of all media outlets, both domestic and international, especially those in the United States. As of today, they were still waiting for a response from McLean, desperate to know the truth. In the United States, Wilson had been waiting for an entire day, a day with no word. Suddenly, he began to panic. "Rest assured, sir, McLean has extensive experience in overseas operations. His mission completion rate is 100%. He executed the nuclear sabotage in Bear Country flawlessly." The assistant, sensing Wilson's anxiety, tried to reassure him. "Then why hasn't he sent back a single message?" Wilson asked, perplexed. "It's simple," the assistant said with a smile. "The destruction of their 6th-generation fighter jet production line will inevitably put the entire nation on high alert. McLean is a seasoned strategist. He will undoubtedly lie low for a while. Remember, this could escalate into a diplomatic dispute or even a world war." Hearing this, Wilson found it reasonable. Suddenly, a team member walked in from outside and said, "Sir, the Huaxia National Security Bureau is holding a press conference. Would you like to watch?" "Here it comes." The assistant smiled. Wilson, filled with anticipation, said, "Put it on the screen." In Yanjing, because the National Security Bureau had given advance notice, a large number of media outlets were already waiting. Deacon was among them. He was a special correspondent from the United States, notorious for causing trouble at press conferences over the years. This time he had received some relevant information from his home country and was overjoyed. If it were true that Huaxia's 6th-generation fighter jet had been destroyed, this would be a world headline. "Do you know what happened?" "No. There were explosions and gunfire. It's unimaginable." Most of the Huaxia journalists were worried, buzzing with discussion. After a while, Chun Haidong finally emerged with his team. "It's Minister Chun. He's personally hosting the press conference today. It must be something major." Many reporters immediately spotted the significance. Chun Haidong rarely appeared in public. The last time he had hosted a press conference was when he first assumed his current position. "Quiet." A staff member maintaining order called out. Instantly, the room fell silent and the atmosphere grew tense. Deacon, a stickler for details, immediately noticed the exhaustion on Chun Haidong's face. He guessed that the sabotage plan had succeeded. Chun Haidong sat down and cleared his throat. This press conference was not only the focus of the media, but also an explosive topic online. Netizens, especially those in the central Huaxia region, had uploaded videos of the firelight to platforms like Douyin and Weibo, with viewership already exceeding tens of billions. "First of all, welcome to all the media. I believe you are all here for yesterday's gun battle in Qinchuan City," Chun Haidong began. At that moment, a beautiful female reporter raised her hand. These press conferences always had their plants. This one was a reporter from the Yanjing news agency. Seeing Chun Haidong's signal, she stood up and asked, "May I ask what the operation yesterday was targeting?" Chun Haidong gestured for her to sit down, scanned the room, and finally offered a slight smile. That smile sent a shiver down the spines of both Deacon and Wilson, who was watching from afar. They both sensed that something was terribly wrong. Then they heard Chun Haidong say slowly, "Yesterday, acting on reliable intelligence, we deployed a large number of agents and dismantled a major espionage ring. This is the largest espionage case since the founding of our nation." As his words fell, the entire room erupted in an uproar. In the next moment, the entire venue fell into a dead silence with many journalists left utterly astounded. It was the assistant seated beside Chun Haidong who let out a dry cough, snapping the reporter from Yinqing Press back to reality, and applause began. Almost instantly, nearly all media outlets joined in the applause. For Deacon West, this was excruciatingly awkward. The clapping sounded piercingly harsh. Online, the situation erupted. Holy crap, that's insane. Done backing the Strategic Deception Bureau, the National Security Bureau, is forever the GOAT. I wonder which country's spy it is. Do you even need to ask? Definitely a certain country. A torrent of netizen discussions surged, instantly topping every platform's headlines. The female reporter on site tactfully continued, "Can we know what operation it was?" It was a spy plan aimed at sabotaging the 6th-generation fighter jet production line. 6th-generation fighter jet. At this revelation, the crowd erupted into uproar. In an instant, voices swelled both domestically and internationally. Has our country already developed a 6th-generation fighter jet? When will test flights begin? When did production start? Can you reveal details about the 6th-generation fighter jet? Chun Haidong's words were like a nuclear bomb detonating among the crowd as reporters clamored to ask questions. Silence. The assistant issued another cold command, and the crowd quieted down. Chun Haidong said, "As for the 6th-generation fighter jet, you'll have to ask the military, who our National Security Bureau dare not speak of it." He then smiled, and the Chinese reporters below followed suit. "Can you share any details about this operation?" a reporter inquired. "Of course." Chun Haidong spoke slowly. "We received intelligence in advance learning that a certain country's spies were attempting to sabotage our production line. Thus, we laid out a plan in advance to capture them." "How many people were apprehended?" "Over 2,000, Chun Haidong stated. "Over 2,000? How many more than 2,000? That's not convenient to disclose." Chun Haidong offered a faint smile while his assistant rolled his eyes. "Can you tell us how you obtained the intelligence?" The reporter's question echoed the thoughts of countless netizens, including Deacon West and Wilson. Failure. It had failed. Wilson's heart bled. The Starlink project's investment in China had exceeded $300 million. After all, to make others willingly serve you the lure of money is essential. Now everything had been wiped out in one fell swoop. And what would unfold next remained uncertain. Wilson's face darkened as he stared intently at the screen, desperate to uncover the ultimate truth. At that moment, Chun Haidong began to speak slowly. "Here, I must mention someone." Everyone fixed their gaze on him, wondering who this remarkably resourceful figure could be. Under the expectant eyes of the crowd, Chun Haidong continued, "The Strategic Deception Bureau. The director." It was indeed the director once again. Everyone had already guessed, filled with admiration for the director. A retired old man had once again achieved great merit. "Excuse me, for such a significant contribution by the director, is there any special awa?" The quickest reporter began to ask. Unexpectedly, Chun Haidong pivoted, saying, "Indeed, it was the director's apprentice Lin Feng." A wave of question marks swept through the entire venue. In the next second, it was as if a nuclear bomb had landed, raising a mushroom cloud into the sky. Lin Feng. It was actually Lin Feng. Wasn't he the rumored son of a powerful figure who relied solely on connections and knew nothing? Was this true? For a moment, many refused to believe it, especially the online trolls. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Lin Feng must be using his father's influence to take credit again. Yes, that must be it. The buzz exploded once more. But Chun Haidong calmly said, "Here I need to mention another person, Zhu Ting. She was a spy for a certain country." During one of his interactions, Lin Feng keenly identified her identity as a spy and reported it to the National Security Bureau. With his coordination, the star-shattering plan was devised, leading to this operation. Hearing Chun Haidong lay out the entire process, the skepticism instantly deflated. Earlier photos of Lin Feng and Zhu Ting dating had circulated, leading many to label him a playboy. "I'm sorry, Lin Feng. I'm sorry." In an instant, the entire internet was moved to tears, vying to apologize. Indeed, the mere appearance of Lin Feng's name had stirred up 1,000 waves. On the trending list, the top spot was occupied by Lin Feng's name. Second place was Sorry Lin Feng. According to Weibo's backend data, within just 1 minute, over 30 million people had apologized. The Strategic Deception Bureau truly has no idle hands. Amazing, he deliberately approached the spy, risking his own safety. With his status, he still stooped to such lengths. He's my idol. Indeed. The tide turned, and Lin Feng instantly became an idol. The atmosphere at the scene reached its peak as reporters pressed for specific details. But Chun Haidong was reluctant to elaborate further. "Minister Chun, can you reveal which country's spy it was?" a reporter asked. "That's not convenient." Chun Haidong's expression turned stern as he said, "However, for this country's actions, our National Security Bureau will retaliate tenfold." And, at this point, Chun Haidong stared directly at Deacon West, making the latter's heart race with anxiety. The implication, the hint, was all too clear. "I hope they will remember from now on. This is the land of China, not a place for any stray cats or dogs to come and cause destruction." With that, Chun Haidong left directly. Furious but speechless Deacon West also quickly exited through another door. The other reporters on site also departed. Today's press conference was explosive news needing to be published immediately. Everyone knew that after today the name Lin Feng would sweep across the entire nation. Meanwhile, at the epicenter of this press conference, Lin Feng was busy tightening screws. "Let's leave it at that," Lin Feng said, while working addressing the scientists nearby. But they seemed not to hear him, huddled together gossiping about something unknown. Initially, Lin Feng thought they were engaged in academic research, but as he listened it didn't sound right. A couple of them were shouting things like "awesome." "What's going on?" Lin Feng frowned, wondering why these scientists were also fond of gossip. But as he drew closer, he saw them all look up, their gazes filled with admiration fixed on him. Simply put, their eyes were shining. Lin Feng swallowed hard and said, "What are you doing? I know you haven't been with women for a long time, but I'm a man." "Incredible. Absolutely phenomenal. Chief Engineer Lin, how can you be so formidable at such a young age? Damn, my son is the same age as you, and he's as useless as a piece of trash. When I get back, I'm going to beat him black and blue." "Same here. Even though my son is just a month old, I can already tell he's a good for nothing." A group of scientists exclaimed, especially Zhou Liming, who looked at Lin Feng as if he was about to prostrate himself on the ground. "What is it?" Lin Feng asked. "Take a look." Zhou Liming gestured for him to come over. Lin Feng walked over and saw the headline. Shocking. Lin Feng of the Strategic Deception Bureau identified a female spy collaborating with the National Security Bureau to crack the biggest spy case since the founding of the nation. Lin Feng was taken aback when he saw this. "You didn't do it." Zhou Liming was stunned, a hint of disappointment in his voice. "No," Lin Feng said with a strange expression. "Wasn't this supposed to be kept secret?" "What the hell is Chun Haidong doing?" The crowd was speechless upon hearing this. Only Lin Feng dared to call Chun Haidong by his name. Yet they admired him even more. Lin Feng had accomplished such a monumental feat, yet he sought no fame and even insisted on secrecy. "So you really were the one who discovered the female spy?" "More or less," Lin Feng said. "And what about the Shattered Star Project?" Suddenly, everyone was abuzz with gossip. Lin Feng, while trying to guess Chun Haidong's thoughts, answered their questions absent-mindedly until a scientist remarked, "Was the female spy's figure good?" Instantly, everyone turned and glared at him with contempt. But the scientist puffed out his chest and said, "Pure curiosity." "Chun Haidong." "Lin Feng. I know you're Lin Feng." Chun Haidong smiled, sat down, took a sip of tea, and said, "Something on your mind? If you want to take credit, why did you have to mention my name?" Lin Feng said, "Mind your own business. Does the National Security Bureau need to report to you?" Chun Haidong said as he hung up. His assistant smiled and remarked, "You seem to be in a good mood. They deployed so many spies, this must have hit them where it hurts." Chun Haidong said, "This major credit must go to Lin Feng." The assistant nodded, "But his identity is sensitive. Isn't this too high profile?" "It's fine," Chun Haidong said. "Look at that old director, he's famous too, but no one tries to assassinate him. As long as his identity as chief engineer isn't exposed, people won't be interested in him." "I understand." The assistant suddenly realized, then asked, "What should we do next?" "Interrogate." "No need for that." Chun Haidong said, "Kill the ones that deserve it. Well, wait for the State Affairs Department's response on specific retaliatory actions." After a moment, he stood up and said, "I want to see Zhu Ting." "Yes." The assistant hurried to make arrangements. A while later, Chun Haidong arrived at the prison and saw Zhu Ting disheveled and bruised. "Who did this?" Chun Haidong frowned. "She was barely recognizable." Lin Feng, the assistant, said, "That kid, he doesn't know his own strength." Chun Haidong scolded. Hearing this, Zhu Ting broke down in tears. She cared deeply about her appearance. Looking at Chun Haidong, she pleaded, "Please give me a chance to redeem myself. I will surely atone for my crimes." Chun Haidong frowned, then looked at his assistant. "What do you think?" "Treason is a capital offense," the assistant said urgently. "Minister, you cannot show mercy." No, I will definitely redeem myself, I swear." Zhu Ting crawled over on her knees. Chun Haidong said softly, "To err is human." "Minister." The assistant was alarmed. Zhu Ting, seeing a glimmer of hope, said joyfully, "I will tell you everything I know." But the next second, Chun Haidong's words made her smile freeze instantly. "To redeem yourself, you must make a contribution. You are a professional spy. I will send you to the United States to gather intelligence. Then." The assistant was stunned. Zhu Ting was also stunned, then screamed in despair, "No." Chun Haidong revealed a devilish smile, saying, "No now? When you chose this path, you should have anticipated this consequence." "Kill me, just kill me," Zhu Ting screamed. Because of her intelligence, this time the United States had lost over 2,000 spies. They would never let her go. Most importantly, she had no more value. "Of course I won't kill you." Chun Haidong looked at her with disdain. "I will hire the best doctors to restore your appearance and send you back on the finest aircraft." No, Zhu Ting screamed. "Kill me, just kill me. I don't want to go to the United States." She tried to crawl over, but Chun Haidong kicked her in the face, sneering, "If you have the courage, kill yourself." Zhu Ting trembled all over upon hearing this. Chun Haidong was right. she truly lacked the courage to commit suicide, even though she knew she was walking into a dead end. She stared at Chun Haidong in despair, but he simply turned and left, leaving only one sentence: "Thank you for conveying such an important message for us." Hearing this, Zhu Ting burst into tears. She finally understood. It had all been a lie from the very beginning. The sixth-generation fighter jet that Lin Feng had conveyed was entirely fabricated. Lin Feng. Lin Feng. Her voice was filled with boundless rage, blood vessels bursting in her eyes. "Hey, you have no idea when that woman tried to seduce me, I didn't even flinch. Not even a little bit." The scientists were astonished. "Get lost." Lin Feng rolled his eyes. "A man shouldn't be ruled by his lower half, right?" "Ha!" Everyone laughed, but they admired Lin Feng even more. Lin Feng was also beaming. Damn. These scientists were so rich that just telling a story and boasting a bit had earned him 400,000 points. At this rate, he could buy another one soon. The entire storytelling session lasted only half an hour until Lin Feng's phone rang. "What a... You have problems over there too. Wait, I'll head over to West Island in a bit." Lin Feng said a few words on the phone, then turned to Yang. "Chief Yang, I'll leave things here to you. I have some matters to attend to." "All right." Yang nodded, his expression strange. After Lin Feng had walked far away, Zhou Liming asked, "Chief Yang, what's wrong?" Reluctant to let him go. "Do you know what West Island is, eh?" Yang said. Zhou Liming and the other scientists' eyes lit up. West Island. The aircraft carrier production base. Could it be? Someone swallowed hard. Chief Engineer Lin is truly a godly figure. Everyone nodded in agreement except for one person who grumbled, "Damn, my son isn't even worth a sweet potato. I really need to give him a beating when I get back." Lin Feng's trip to the Western Sea Island had already been a week by the time he returned. The progress on the supercarrier was quite swift, but it brought back a major problem. Nuclear power. As the energy source for the supercarrier, a simple nuclear reactor could not provide stable and powerful propulsion. So, controlled nuclear fusion was the best choice. On the plane, Lin Feng was deep in thought when he suddenly heard the system prompt ding. Mission complete. Ding. The Starshot plan has concluded with a total of 2001 spies captured. Ding. Reward of 40000 points. Hearing this, Lin Feng couldn't help but feel delighted. Another 400,000 points. With this, he could almost exchange for another super project. Lin Feng searched through the system, but found no project for controlled nuclear fusion. He pondered for a moment, then grew troubled. In truth, current nuclear power technology was sufficient to meet the needs of aircraft carrier navigation. However, as projects grew larger and more numerous, an energy revolution was inevitable. Relying on energy sources like petroleum would certainly not work. In the end, Lin Feng thought that controlled nuclear fusion might be a Tier 3 technology, which he could not yet exchange for. After disembarking from the plane, Lin Feng walked out of the airport, thought for a moment, and said to Su Chinsi beside him, "Help me contact Yanjing. I want to meet the nation's nuclear experts." Understood. Su Chinsi had just nodded when suddenly a scream rang out from the airport. "It's Lin Feng." Lin Feng looked up and immediately sensed something amiss. The entire airport crowd was swarming toward him. It really is Lin Feng. So handsome. Brother Lin Feng, you're amazing, killing so many spies. Lin Feng, I love you. Lin Feng wiped his sweat seeing their frenzy and smiled faintly as he dealt with them politely. Later, he finally got into the car drenched in sweat. He then noticed that Su Chinsi, that woman, had somehow already gotten into the car. "Damn, when did you sneak away?" Lin Feng asked curiously. This woman was elusive. "I don't like crowded places." "Obviously neither do I." Lin Feng said angrily. "You're my bodyguard. Oh, according to the plot, you should be clearing the way for me." "Assistant," Su Chinsi corrected. "And no one wants to harm you." Lin Feng was speechless, but he had no mood for jokes. He pondered deeply as they returned directly to the Strategic Deception Bureau. As soon as he entered, Lin Feng saw the director dressed to the nines and asked, "Old man, where are you off to?" "Going on TV." The director said cheerfully. "Who are you going to fool this time?" Lin Feng remarked. "None of your damn business." The director patted his backside and left without telling him that he was being interviewed for Lin Feng's great achievement. He would also take the chance to spin some tales about the sixth-generation fighter. "See, you're lucky to be with me. If you were with a leader like that, you'd suffer," Lin Feng said to Su Chinsi, pointing at the director. But when he turned his head, he found that woman had already vanished. Sigh. Lin Feng sighed, thinking the team was getting hard to manage now. He returned to his quarters, and just as he dozed off, Zhou Quanmin called. "As for nuclear matters, go to the Jiangnan nuclear base yourself," Zhou Quanmin said. "I've already informed them." "All right." Lin Feng roused himself a bit. "Also, regarding the education reform you mentioned, we've held the 18th meeting. There will be results soon, and you'll need to come to Yanjing then." Zhou Quanmin added. "No problem," Lin Feng replied seriously. "Also, I want to ask you something." "Go ahead. Given this massive spy case, what should we demand from the United States?" Lin Feng paused. The matter had blown up so big that the U.S. was surely panicking. If they really tore the window open, it would mean the world was on the brink of turmoil. The U.S. daring to cause such trouble in a foreign country would inevitably lead to massive international repercussions. Let me think, Lin Feng said, then asked, what if they refuse to give in? Then blow up one of their damn military bases. Zhou Quanmin said bluntly. Lin Feng was a bit speechless at the sudden profanity, but a surge of pride filled him. The Eastern Huaxiao of today was no longer what it once was. The rise of Huaxiao was unstoppable. As for the U.S., wanting war, they weren't afraid at all. At least in the near seas, the U.S. couldn't possibly match them. By the time Lin Feng set off for Jiangnan, it was already evening. Meanwhile, the director was spouting off on the show. As for Lin Feng, his mouth isn't too good, he's not good at hiding things. But his judgment is indeed excellent. He saw through Zhu Ting as a foreign spy at a glance. Did I guide him? Haha, there was some, otherwise how could a young man see through it? Oh, the 6th-generation fighter. No worries, we've moved it to a safe place. In a few months, our 6th-gen fighter will soar the skies. Lin Feng, watching on the plane, cursed under his breath. I knew where he went. Nowhere to be seen when there's work, but first in line to take credit. He didn't really blame the director. The director's words were just a way to keep building Lin Feng's image. Lin Feng was capable, but still young, so his words could be trusted. After landing smoothly, Lin Feng headed straight to the Jiangnan nuclear base. At the entrance, the base's chief director Pan Wenguang was waiting nervously. Because Zhou Quanmin had said not to ask about Lin Feng's identity, just follow his orders. That was a command. So when he saw Lin Feng, Pan Wenguang found it hard to believe. He knew well that if Lin Feng were merely a child of an official, he wouldn't receive such treatment. Minister Jiang, hello. Lin Feng politely extended his hand. Pan Wenguang snapped out of it and quickly shook it. I heard before coming that this is the largest nuclear base. I'm glad to finally see it in person, Lin Feng said with a smile. Pan Wenguang immediately warmed to Lin Feng. Looking at the base with emotion, he said, it's been a while. Our first nuclear base was right here. As they walked in, Pan Wenguang said, the experts inside are all waiting for you. When Lin Feng entered, he heard a heated argument already underway. These technical experts, all from the same field, were especially interesting when they met. Oldly, why are you so stubborn? I've said it before, levels even magnetic confinement fusion is impossible with our equipment. What we need to do first is achieve net energy gain from fusion reactions. What you're saying is useless. Stop arguing. The U.S. has already implemented level 8 technical requirements. Can we not be anxious? Whoever masters this technology first will control the next technological revolution. As they talked, they began to quarrel. Pan Wenguang frowned and was about to step in to scold them, but Lin Feng stopped him. He sat quietly to the side. At that moment, he noticed a tall, thin man with glasses in the corner who seemed out of place. The man looked at the others with envy, but mostly with dejection. Who is that? Lin Feng asked curiously. Just as his question sounded, the system beeped. Ding. Hidden mission triggered. Ding. Mission requirements: 1. Obtain the levels even controlled nuclear fusion blueprints. 2. Find, guide, and recruit a talent. 3. Help the talent complete the level 8 nuclear technology experiment. Upon mission completion, points and controlled nuclear fusion data will be awarded. Holy shit. Hearing this, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. What? Pan Wenguang was taken aback by the exclamation. Nothing. Lin Feng kept his eyes fixed on the bespectacled man. What's his name? Lin Feng pressed on. Jiang Cheng. Pan Wenguang's expression twisted oddly as he answered. Lin Feng was almost certain this was the gifted individual the system had mentioned. He seems to have friction with others. Not exactly, Pan Wenguang said. He's quite talented, but his ideas are too radical. They nearly cost us the entire project. What happened? Lin Feng asked. If we had continued the experiment, a nuclear leak, or even an explosion, would have been inevitable. Pan Wenguang exhaled. After that, he was sidelined. Did anyone die? Lin Feng inquired. One person did from radiation poisoning. They lived about 8 years. Pan Wenguang continued. To be fair, you can't blame him entirely. Everyone involved in that experiment signed a death waiver. The state provided the best compensation possible, and even the victim himself said on his deathbed that he never blamed Jiang Cheng. But sometimes the hardest thing to overcome is one's own inner demon. Lin Feng nodded. Mr. Lin, perhaps we should first. Pan Wenguang started. Lin Feng nodded again, and the two walked forward. Pan Wenguang began to introduce Lin Feng. For the next half hour, Lin Feng listened quietly as they discussed controlled nuclear fusion. But it was all empty talk. Finally, Lin Feng glanced at Jiang Cheng in the corner. Dr. Jiang, what's your take on this? Jiang Cheng paused, puzzled as to why Lin Feng had singled him out, but replied, these academicians have presented the best of what we have. I have nothing to add. Lin Feng noticed that the light had gone out of his eyes. At the meeting's end, Lin Feng dismissed the group and then said, have him stay. He's coming with me. Pan Wenguang hesitated, confused, but summoned him anyway. With him, Jiang Cheng was taken aback. He looked at Lin Feng. I decline. He could tell Lin Feng was a layman in nuclear technology. Jiang Cheng was willing to defer to those with superior skills, but he would never take orders from an outsider. That's an order, Pan Wenguang urged, thinking, do you have any idea who Lin Feng is? But Lin Feng waved his hand. You look down on me. Yes, Jiang Qing stated flatly. Pan Wingwang's eyes went wide with panic. Lin Feng said, what if it's a national mandate? Jiang Qing exhaled. Aren't the other academicians better than me? He turned and walked away, waving dismissively. Pan Wingwang was about to stop him for a scolding, but Lin Feng said, give me the file on the deceased martyr. 3 days later, Lin Feng found a gravestone on the hill behind the nuclear base. Looking around, he saw tombstones everywhere. Countless scientists and technicians had labored tirelessly to bring about China's advanced nuclear technology. I bought too few flowers, Lin Feng remarked. Su Chenxi agreed. The deceased was named Li, a technician. According to Pan Wingwang, she was Jiang Qing's apprentice. They bowed slightly. After a while, they saw Jiang Qing approaching. Lin Feng knew he would come. Today was Li's birthday. Jiang Qing was startled to see Lin Feng, but he gritted his teeth. He placed flowers and a roast chicken before Li's tombstone, then knelt down. He kowtowed again and again. 9 times in total. Finally, his voice choked. Could you leave first? Su Chenxi began to move, but Lin Feng said, afraid to show us your weakness. Just go, will you? Jiang Qing roared on the verge of a breakdown. Lin Feng sneered, don't throw a tantrum at me. You got someone killed, and you have the nerve to lose your temper. Shut up. Jiang Qing swung his arm. Su Chenxi frowned, ready to block for Lin Feng, but was astonished to see him simply turn his head, dodging Jiang Qing's attack with ease. Jiang Qing's move was slow but sudden. Su Chenxi couldn't help but size up Lin Feng. This guy was usually so lazy he complained about picking up takeout. How did he have such reflexes? After dodging, Lin Feng continued with a smirk. A coward's life is spent hiding in fear. Shut up. Jiang Qing was truly on the edge of a mental collapse. He slumped to the ground, sobbing in agony. You don't understand. You just don't understand. Seeing this, Lin Feng felt a pang of pity. He thought for a moment, then said, I know. If it weren't for Li, many more would have died. But she's gone now. And have you forgotten what Li's greatest dream was? Jiang Qing froze. Jiang Qing, everyone makes mistakes. If you truly feel guilty toward her, then fulfill her dream for her. When you meet her again with that dream in hand, I believe she won't blame you. Lin Feng tossed a piece of paper as he spoke. If you decide, come find me here. Will he come? Su Chenxi looked at Lin Feng. He said nothing, just glanced at his watch. If not, we leave. Not going to persuade him. I can't have a coward working for me no matter how skilled he is, Lin Feng said with utter seriousness. As his words faded, Su Chenxi glanced at the door. Looks like he'll take my leave first. Lin Feng nodded. Su Chenxi walked to the door and pushed it open. Jiang Qing was standing right outside. He stepped in and met Lin Feng's gaze. Sit, Lin Feng said. What can a layman like you do for me? Jiang Qing retorted. Su Chenxi, who hadn't gone far, heard this and turned back, her eyes flashing with murderous intent. Lin Feng's achievements were not something Jiang Qing could disparage. But Lin Feng waved his hand, and Su Chenxi reluctantly closed the door. Once the door was shut, Lin Feng said, levels even controlled nuclear technology. Jiang Qing froze, his pupils dilating with excitement. Lin Feng knew had guessed right. He looked at Jiang Qing. You have other ideas in your mind, don't you? In that moment, Jiang Qing's expression toward Lin Feng shifted completely. He felt that Lin Feng had come to see through his very soul. And Lin Feng knew this called for a heavy blow. He tossed out a badge. Jiang Qing picked it up and was utterly stunned. It read Chief Engineer of the Super Aircraft Carrier Lin Feng. You? Jiang Qing gasped, looking at Lin Feng with entirely new eyes. I'm sorry. His voice was sincere and apologetic. And at that moment, the system chimed, ding. Step 2 of the mission complete. Successfully locate and guide the gifted individual. Lin Feng was overjoyed. In truth, he was simply completing the mission to obtain data on controlled nuclear fusion, unaware that the Jiang Qing before him would become the energy maniac that countless would come to fear. If I could truly obtain level 7 controlled nuclear fusion technology, I would be willing to try once more. Why? Because after that experiment I realized I was too hasty. Lin Feng pondered for a moment, and then asked, is the gap between level 7 and level 6 truly vast? Of course, each level represents a monumental difference, said Jiang Qing. If we continue at this pace, how long would it take to research level 7? At least 3 years, Jiang Qing replied. 3 years. Lin Feng mused, finding the timeline too lengthy. Suddenly his eyes lit up. I think I know where we can obtain level 7 controlled nuclear technology. In New Gold Mountain, the United States, a negotiation was underway. On one side stood China, on the other the United States. This meeting was closed door, yet the leading figures were of immense stature. One was Zhou Quanmin. The other was Lanceport, the U.S. Secretary of State. Each delegation comprised over a dozen members. Given the level of this meeting, it should have been solemn, yet it resembled a boisterous marketplace. Bullshit. If you don't compensate, it'll blow it all up. Come on, let's go down together. Zhou Quanmin slammed the table and shouted, rising to his feet. Lanceport was both furious and helpless. Before arriving, he had heard that Zhou Quanmin was easygoing, but the man had completely transformed. This incident was indeed America's fault as they had made a move. One must understand that China was no longer what it once was. If they remained passive while other nations acted, they would truly be seen as a soft target. The U.S. side feared two things. First, the exposure would invite criticism from other nations. With many allies, they worried about losing cohesion and making the team difficult to lead. Second, they genuinely feared China's unpredictable response. After all, this was China's bottom line. With over 2,000 spies captured, there were bound to be those who would betray secrets to save themselves. Let's call it a day. I'm hungry, no more talking. Zhou Quanmin patted his backside and strutted away arrogantly. Lansport, seething with rage, called Wilson and berated him mercilessly, causing the assistant beside him to tremble in fear. What is it? Lansport asked. We found Zhu Ting on a passenger plane arriving in the U.S., the assistant said. And then, oi. She says she has intelligence too. To hell with that. Why don't you just lock her up in prison and torture her? What value does she have left? Hasn't she caused us enough trouble? Lansport shouted. Yes, yes, the assistant nodded repeatedly. That evening, Zhou Quanmin massaged his temples. In truth, he hadn't decided what to demand. He might as well start with something grand. For instance, 7 or 8 aircraft carriers. Or an overseas military base. Whatever it took, he would probe the Americans' limits. Sir, Mr. Lin Feng is looking for you, the assistant entered, bowing slightly. Quickly, Zhou Quanmin immediately stood up. Though weary, the name Lin Feng rejuvenated him. He grabbed the phone and Lin Feng's voice came through. What? Controlled nuclear fusion. Not possible. I think demanding 7 carriers is more reasonable. Lin Feng was speechless, but still said, Actually, I don't need a high level. Just level 7 will do. What does level 7 mean? Zhou Quanmin was utterly clueless. They've already reached level 8, a level 7 is outdated. Then why bother with it? Zhou Quanmin said. Lin Feng was again at a loss. Zhou Quanmin pondered, then turned serious. All right, I know what to do. Good. Lin Feng hung up and noticed the old general was on TV again. This old man sure has a lot of interviews. Lin Feng reviewed reports on nuclear energy while listening to the interview. It began with the usual critique of Lin Feng, calling him young and naive. Then came the normal interview. In recent years, we've been launching carriers like dumplings. When do you think we'll develop a Ford-class carrier? The host asked earnestly. The old general pondered. That's a bit fanciful. But we've already developed 6th-generation fighters. A Ford-class carrier shouldn't be far off, the host said. Those are not the same magnitude. 6th-gen fighters are a technical challenge, but a Ford-class carrier demands extremely high standards. The difference from ordinary carriers lies in. The old general explained eloquently, though inwardly, he was brimming with pride. When the supercarrier was launched, the Ford class would be nothing but trash. But for now, he couldn't say that. Oh, the host responded, sensing his skepticism. The old general continued. Let me tell you, instead of waiting for a Ford-class carrier, you should dream about controlled nuclear fusion. Oh, has our country made a breakthrough in controlled nuclear fusion? The host paused. This? Haha. The old general gave a knowing smile, but remained silent. This trick he had learned from Lin Feng. Use the 6th-gen fighter to conceal the space-based weapon. So using controlled nuclear fusion to hide the supercarrier was perfectly logical. I understand, the host smiled. He knew tonight's interview had enough material to trend. But Lin Feng, watching from his couch, spat out his hot tea. He turned to see the smug old general on screen, then glanced at the nuclear reactor documents in his hand, sweating. Old man, your mouth really is venomous. I hope the National Security Bureau doesn't drag you back for tea this time. The next day, Zhou Quanmin rose dressed in a sharp suit. Handsome? Zhou Quanmin asked his assistant. Yes, the assistant nodded. Let's go. Zhou Quanmin walked, adjusting his glasses. He looked both dashing and refined. In the meeting room, Zhou Quanmin led his team in. On the other side, Lansport, seeing Zhou's attire, felt relieved. It seemed Zhou would negotiate seriously today, not start by demanding 7 carriers. Yesterday's conditions, were those even humanly possible? Good morning, Mr. Lansport. Good morning, Mr. Zhou Quanmin. How did you sleep? Not well. Zhou Quanmin shook his head. I went back and thought about it. 7 carriers was indeed excessive. Our side now wishes to change the terms. Lansport breathed a sigh of relief. In truth, he hadn't slept well either. He picked up his coffee, thinking today would be more civil, when he heard Zhou say, How about this? Forget the carriers. I hear your controlled nuclear fusion technology is quite advanced. Let's go with that. Upon hearing this, Lansport sprayed out his coffee, staring at Zhou Quanmin in utter disbelief, thinking, Are you here to joke with me?